I never thought my breaking point would come during a family dinner, but that's exactly how it happened. The sound of my mother-in-law's fork scraping against her plate was like nails on a chalkboard, each screech matching the tension headache building behind my eyes. My name is Marin, and until recently, I thought I was living the life I was supposed to want. Nice house in the suburbs, successful husband, beautiful daughter. But that night, something inside me finally cracked. "Sophie, sit up straight," Bernice commanded from across the table. My 6-year-old daughter's shoulders hunched further, her small fingers fidgeting with her napkin. "Really, Marin, you should work on her posture. A young lady needs to learn these things early." I watched Sophie's face fall, noticed how she started to withdraw into herself, the way she always did before her stutter kicked in. "She's fine, Bernice. She's just tired from school. Please, may I be excused?" Sophie's voice was barely above a whisper. Before I could answer, my husband Nolan cut in. "No one's excused until they finish their dinner. And Sophie, we've talked about that stutter. You need to try harder." I gripped my knife tighter, knuckles white against the sterling silver. "She doesn't need to try harder. She needs support and maybe some professional help," which I've been saying for months. "Professional help?" Bernice's eyebrows shot up as she exchanged a look with Nolan. "In my day, we didn't run to therapists for every little thing. Children just need proper discipline." "Well, this isn't your day anymore, is it?" The words slipped out before I could stop them, sharper than I intended. The silence that followed was deafening. Nolan's jaw tightened, that familiar warning sign I'd learned to fear over the years. "Marin, a word in the kitchen." "Now." I followed him, feeling Bernice's smug satisfaction radiating from the dining room. As soon as we were alone, Nolan turned on me. "What's gotten into you lately? You're embarrassing me in front of my mother." "I'm embarrassing you?" I kept my voice low, conscious of Sophie in the next room. "What about how you're treating our daughter? She needs help, Nolan, not criticism." He stepped closer, using his height to loom over me. "What she needs is to learn how to fit into this family properly. Just like you need to remember your place." Something about those words, "your place," hit differently this time. Maybe it was because earlier that day, I'd found some strange bank statements in Nolan's office while cleaning. Or maybe it was because I'd caught him in 3 lies this week alone about where he'd been after work. But standing there in our pristine kitchen, with its granite countertops and high-end appliances, I suddenly felt like I was suffocating. "My place," I repeated, tasting the bitterness of those words. "And where exactly is that, Nolan?" He smiled, that condescending smile I'd grown to hate. "Supporting your husband. Making our home run smoothly. Being grateful for everything I provide." He gestured around us. "This isn't exactly the life you could have on your own, is it?" Before I could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway. "And Mom? Grandma says I should apologize for my behavior." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Saw how she made herself smaller, how she tried so hard to disappear. Saw myself reflected in her eyes. "No, sweetheart," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "You have nothing to apologize for." Nolan's hand gripped my arm, hard enough to leave marks. "Marin." But something had shifted inside me. Like a switch being flipped, or maybe more like a dam finally breaking. I gently pulled away from his grip and walked over to Sophie, kneeling down to her level. "In fact," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I think it's time some things changed around here." I didn't know it then, but that moment in the kitchen would be the beginning of a war. One that would either destroy everything I'd built my life around, or finally set us free. The morning after our disastrous dinner, I found Bernice in my kitchen, rearranging my cabinets. She didn't even look up when I walked in, just continued moving my coffee mugs to a different shelf with the precision of someone dismantling a bomb. "These really should be closer to the coffee maker, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Efficiency is everything when running a household." I stood there in my pajamas, watching her systematically undo every organizational system I'd created over the years. The kitchen was my space, or at least it had been. Now, like everything else in my life, it was being quietly taken over. "Where's Nolan?" I asked, reaching past her to retrieve a mug from its new location. "Oh, he left early for work. Something about an important meeting." She paused, studying me with those sharp eyes. "He mentioned you were quite emotional last night." I focused on making my coffee, trying to keep my hands steady. Did he mention why? Marin, she sighed, placing a hand on my arm. I know you mean well, but you need to understand how things work in this family. Nolan has worked so hard to give you and Sophie a beautiful life. The least you can do is make it easier for him. The coffee maker gurgled, filling the silence between us. I thought about the bank statements I'd found, about the late-night phone calls Nolan thought I couldn't hear, about Sophie's increasingly withdrawn behavior. And what exactly does making it easier look like, Bernice? She smiled, that same condescending smile Nolan had perfected. Well, for starters, this nonsense about Sophie needing therapy needs to stop. It's just attention-seeking behavior, and you're enabling it. Before I could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school. My heart clenched when I saw she'd picked out her most conservative outfit, the one she wore when trying to avoid criticism. "Gee, good morning," she said quietly. Bernice's lips tightened at the stutter. "Sophie, remember what we practiced? Take a deep breath and try again." I watched my daughter's shoulders tense, her small fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. Something inside me snapped. "Sophie, honey, why don't you go get your backpack ready? I'll drive you to school today." "But Nolan usually," Bernice started. "I'm driving my daughter to school." I cut her off, my voice firm. "And while we're discussing family matters, I'd appreciate it if you'd stop rearranging my kitchen." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Bernice drew herself up, clutching her pearl necklace like a shield. "I see you're still in quite a state. Perhaps we should discuss this when Nolan gets home. Perhaps we should discuss why Nolan's been having secret meetings with someone named Marcus Reed." The name had been all over those bank statements, and judging by how quickly the color drained from Bernice's face, it meant something. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice wavered. "Really?" "Because when I Googled him this morning, I found some interesting connections to failed investment schemes and fraud investigations." Bernice's hand trembled as she set down the mug she was holding. "You've been snooping through Nolan's private affairs?" "When those affairs affect my family, yes." We stared at each other across the kitchen island, years of unspoken tensions crackling between us. Finally, Bernice gathered her purse. "I think I should go," she said stiffly. "But Marin, be very careful about the accusations you make. You wouldn't want to jeopardize everything you have here." After she left, I found Sophie sitting on the stairs, her backpack clutched to her chest. "Is everything okay, Mom?" I knelt down beside her, noticing how she'd started biting her nails again, another habit Bernice and Nolan had tried to correct. "No, sweetheart," I said honestly. "But it will be." As we drove to school, I made 2 mental notes. First, to call my cousin Griffin, who worked in finance and might know something about Marcus Reed. And second, to start documenting everything. Every conversation, every bank statement, every subtle threat. Because one thing was becoming crystal clear. In this family, knowledge wasn't just power, it was survival. I never meant to overhear the conversation that would change everything. I was just dropping off some paperwork at Nolan's office, paperwork he'd forgotten at home for the 3rd time this month. But as I approached his door, I heard Bernice's voice, sharp and urgent. "Marcus is getting impatient, Nolan. He wants the rest of the money by Friday." I froze outside the door, my hand hovering over the handle. "Mother, I told you I have it under control." Nolan's voice had that edge I knew too well, the one that appeared whenever his carefully constructed world started slipping. "Like you had it under control when you lost the first investment? Or when you borrowed against the house without telling Marin?" My stomach dropped. "The house. Our house." I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the folder to my chest. "Marin doesn't need to know anything," Nolan said. "She's been asking too many questions lately as it is. Getting ideas about Sophie needing therapy, wanting to go back to work. Well, we can't have that, can we?" Bernice's voice dripped with disdain. "The moment she gets financial independence, she'll realize she doesn't need you. And then what happens to our family?" "I know what I'm doing." "Do you?" "Because your wife was asking about Marcus Reed this morning." A sudden crash made me jump, something being thrown or knocked over. "She what?" Nolan's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Don't worry, I handled it. But you need to keep her busy, distracted. Remember what happened with your father when your first wife started getting too independent." I barely registered the rest of their conversation. First wife? Nolan had been married before? Footsteps approached the door. I ducked into the nearby bathroom, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. Through the crack in the door, I watched Bernice leave, her heels clicking down the hallway. A few minutes later, Nolan emerged, running his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing but now seemed like just another part of his performance. When I was sure they were gone, I slipped into his office. The place looked immaculate as always, except for a toppled photo frame on his desk, the one of our wedding day. As I picked it up, a business card fell from behind it, Marcus Reed, Investment Opportunities. I took a photo of the card with trembling hands, then noticed Nolan's laptop was still open. He never left it unlocked. Never. 5 minutes. That's all I needed. I found the emails quickly, dozens of them between Nolan and Marcus, discussing investment schemes and mounting losses. But it was an older email thread that made my blood run cold. It mentioned settlement payments to someone named Rachel Wilson. A quick social media search revealed what Bernice had let slip. Rachel Wilson was Nolan's ex-wife. The marriage had lasted less than a year, ending shortly after Nolan's father died. There were no photos of her after 2015. My phone buzzed by a text from Sophie's school. She'd had another anxiety attack during show and tell. I closed the laptop, my decision crystallizing. This wasn't just about me anymore. Every day I stayed in this marriage, every lie I pretended not to see, was teaching Sophie that this was what she deserved from life. As I left the office, I called my cousin Griffin. "Hey, stranger," he answered. "Everything okay?" "No," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "I need your help. And I need you to not ask questions yet." "I'm listening." "What do you know about Marcus Reed?" The pause on the other end told me everything. "Marin," Griffin said carefully. "How do you know that name?" "Because my husband is involved with him. And I think..." I took a deep breath, watching Nolan's office building shrink in my rearview mirror. "I think I'm in trouble." "Don't do anything yet," Griffin said. "Meet me at the usual place in an hour." "And Marin? Delete this call from your phone." As I drove away, I realized I was smiling, not because I was happy, but because for the first time in years, I felt something else, powerful. They wanted to keep me dependent? Fine. Let them think they'd succeeded. The best revenge, after all, is the one they never see coming. Griffin was waiting for me at our old meeting spot, the rundown diner where we used to hide out during family gatherings when we were teenagers. He had that same worried look he wore back then, when I told him I was dropping out of law school to marry Nolan. "You look like hell," he said as I slid into the booth. "Thanks. You should see the other guy." I tried to smile, but my face wouldn't cooperate. The waitress brought us coffee without asking. Some places never change, even when everything else does. "So," Griffin said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "Marcus Reed, you're not going to like what I found." I opened the envelope, spreading out documents that showed a pattern of failed investments, lawsuits, and settlements. But it was the newspaper clipping that made my hands shake. Local investment manager linked to domestic violence case. "Rachel Wilson," I whispered. Griffin's head snapped up. "How do you know that name?" "She was Nolan's first wife." I pushed my coffee away, suddenly nauseated. "What happened to her?" He pulled out his phone, showing me more articles. Rachel had filed domestic violence charges against someone, names redacted, then suddenly dropped them and moved across the country. The timing matched perfectly with her divorce from Nolan. "There's more," Griffin said quietly. "Marcus Reed? He's not just some shady investor. He's the guy who helps wealthy men hide their assets during divorces. Usually right before things get ugly." The diner's fluorescent lights seemed too bright suddenly. I could hear my pulse in my ears. "Marin." Griffin touched my arm. "Talk to me." "Sophie had another anxiety attack today," I said instead. "She can barely speak in public anymore. And Nolan. He just keeps saying she needs to try harder." Like Rachel needed to try harder? I flinched. Griffin had always been too good at connecting, so I was trying to ignore. "You need to meet Lydia Carson," he said. "She's not just a lawyer. She specializes in cases like this. She helped Rachel. Rachel survived? More than survived. She's the one who put me in touch with Lydia." He slid another business card across the table. but you need to be careful. If Nolan suspects anything. The diner's bell chimed. Bernice walked in, her designer purse clashing with the worn vinyl booths. Our eyes met, and I knew she'd followed me. Well, isn't this cozy? She said, approaching our table. Family reunion? I watched her take in the scattered documents, her perfectly manicured hand tightening on her purse strap. Just catching up, Griffin said smoothly, gathering the papers. You remember how close we were as kids? Of course. Bernice's smile didn't reach her eyes. Maren, dear, Nolan's been trying to reach you. Something about Sophie being upset at school again. My phone was still off. Smart move, tracking me through Sophie. I should go, I said, standing. But Griffin caught my wrist. Remember what we discussed about that investment opportunity, he said meaningfully. The timing is critical. I nodded, understanding his real message. Act fast. Outside, Bernice linked her arm through mine, a gesture that looked friendly but felt like handcuffs. You know, she said as we walked to our cars, I've always admired how much you care about family. It would be terrible if anything threatened that. Stability. I thought about Sophie, about Rachel, about all the carefully constructed lies surrounding the Whitfield family. You're right, I said, matching her tone. Family is everything. She looked satisfied, probably thinking she'd put me in my place. She didn't notice me slipping Lydia's card into my pocket or the way I'd angled my phone to record our entire conversation. Because that's the thing about being underestimated. It makes people careless. And I'd been underestimated long enough. As I drove home, I made two decisions. First, I would meet with Lydia Carson tomorrow. And second, I would start teaching Sophie that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying, it's knowing when to leave. The game was changing. And this time I was writing the rules. The call about my father's death came at 3 a.m. I hadn't spoken to him in 7 years, not since he missed my wedding, sending only a brief note saying he disapproved of my choices. Now here I was standing in his study, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd tried to forget. You shouldn't be here alone, Nolan had said when I told him I was going. What will people think? What people? The father who was dead, or the family I'd left behind. I picked up a framed photo from my father's desk, me at my law school graduation, before I met Nolan, before I became Mrs. Whitfield. My smile looked different then. Wider. Real. I wondered if you'd come. I turned to find my old friend Kate in the doorway. We hadn't spoken since I'd ghosted her after the wedding, following Nolan's suggestions about appropriate friendships. I almost didn't, I admitted. She stepped into the room, and I noticed the sharp suit, the confident stance. She'd made partner at her firm, the position I'd once dreamed of. Your father talked about you, she said. Near the end. Did he? I tried to keep my voice neutral. What did he say? He said he should have fought harder. Should have told you what he knew about Nolan Whitfield. The photo frame slipped from my fingers, hitting the carpet with a soft thud. What are you talking about? Kate pulled out her phone, scrolling through emails. Your father was on the board of directors at First National. 7 years ago, they investigated some suspicious transactions. Guess whose name came up? My throat went dry. Marcus Reed. Her head snapped up. How do you? Kate. Griffin appeared in the doorway, his expression urgent. Nolan's here. My heart stopped. What? He said he had meetings all day. Well, he's downstairs with Bernice, telling everyone how worried he is about his poor, emotionally fragile wife. Kate's eyes narrowed. Emotionally fragile? It's his favorite narrative, I said bitterly. Makes it easier to control me. Like he controlled Rachel? Kate asked quietly. The room went still. Griffin cursed under his breath. You knew. I whispered. All this time. Your father knew, Kate said. He tried to warn you, but Nolan had already isolated you. Then Rachel disappeared, and the investigation just went away. Footsteps on the stairs. Nolan's voice drifting up, perfectly modulated to sound concerned. Kate quickly transferred files to my phone. Everything your father collected. Bank records, police reports, Rachel's original statement. Maren. Nolan's voice closer now. Darling, are you up here? Griffin moved to the door. I'll stall him. Wait, I grabbed Kate's arm. What happened to Rachel? Really? She's alive. Protected. And ready to talk if you need her. Nolan appeared in the doorway, all sympathetic smiles and worried eyes. There you are. I've been so concerned. He noticed Kate, his smile flickering for just a moment. Katie, isn't it? From law school. It's Catherine now. Partner at Morris and Chen. She handed me her card, holding my gaze. Call me. Anytime. After she left, Nolan wrapped an arm around my shoulders, a gesture that once felt protective but now felt like a warning. You shouldn't be here alone, he murmured. Let's get you home. Home. Where Sophie was waiting with Bernice. Where every room held cameras I wasn't supposed to know about. Where Rachel had once lived, thinking she was safe. Actually, I said, I need a minute. To say goodbye. He hesitated, then nodded magnanimously. Of course. I'll wait downstairs. Once he was gone, I looked around my father's study one last time, at the life he'd tried to warn me about, at the truth he died protecting. I took the graduation photo from its broken frame and slipped it into my purse, along with Kate's card. Then I walked downstairs to my husband, already planning my next move. Because now I knew this wasn't just about saving myself anymore. It was about justice. For Rachel. For my father. For Sophie. And justice, I was learning, sometimes looks a lot like revenge. I should have known Nolan would make his move the moment I showed any sign of independence. The morning after my father's funeral, I woke up to find my phone disconnected and my car keys missing. Simple, effective tactics, ones I might not have recognized before learning about Rachel. It's for your own good, Nolan said over breakfast, watching me try my dead phone again. You're not thinking clearly, darling. Grief can do strange things to people. Sophie sat between us, pushing her cereal around, her eyes darting between our faces like she was watching a tennis match. Where's Grandma? She asked, her stutter barely noticeable when she was with just us. She'll be here soon, Nolan smiled. In fact, we've been talking about sending you to stay with her for a while. Wouldn't that be nice? My spoon clattered against the bowl. What? Just until you're feeling more stable. He reached across the table, touching my hand. I fought the urge to pull away. We're all worried about you, Marin. The way you've been acting, the secret meetings. And Mom. Sophie's voice trembled. It's okay, sweetheart, I said, but Nolan cut me off. No, it's not okay. Your mother needs help, Sophie. Professional help. And while she gets better, you'll be safe with Grandma. The front door opened, Bernice's signature perfectly timed entrance. But this time she wasn't alone. A man in a white coat followed her in. Dr. Phillips is here to help, Bernice announced, her concern as perfectly crafted as her appearance. We've all noticed the changes, dear. The paranoia, the accusations about Nolan's business. I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. You're not taking my daughter. Mrs. Whitfield, the doctor stepped forward. Your family is concerned about your mental state. These delusions about your husband. They're not delusions. I backed away, reaching for Sophie. Tell them about Rachel, I said to Nolan. Tell them about Marcus Reed and the missing money. You see, Bernice touched the doctor's arm. She's been fixating on Nolan's ex-wife, imagining conspiracies. Because they're real. I pulled out my phone, forgetting it was dead. All the evidence. All my father's files, trapped in a useless piece of metal. Marin. Nolan's voice was gentle, reasonable, the voice that had made me doubt myself for years. Think about Sophie. Do you want her to see you like this? Sophie was crying now, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. I knew that look. It was the same one I'd seen in old photos of Rachel. The doctor took another step forward. Mrs. Whitfield, if you'll just come with me. No. I grabbed Sophie's hand. We're leaving. Security, Bernice called out. 2 men appeared in the doorway, private security, not hospital orderlies. Of course. Nolan always planned everything perfectly. Mom. Sophie's grip tightened on my hand. I don't want to go with Grandma. I looked at my daughter, then at the men blocking our escape, at Nolan's practiced concern and Bernice's triumphant smile, at the doctor with his commitment papers, ready to label me unstable, unfit, just like they'd probably done to Rachel. 7 years of carefully constructed control, all leading to this moment. Okay, I said quietly. You're right. I need help. Nolan's relief looked almost genuine. It's for the best, darling. I knelt down to Sophie's level, wiping her tears. Remember what we read in your book? About the princess who pretended to give up. Her eyes widened slightly. She was always so quick to understand. Sometimes, I continued loud enough for everyone to hear, we have to take a step back to move forward. Very wise. The doctor nodded approvingly. I stood up, letting them think they'd won. Let them think I was broken. But as they led me out to the waiting car, I caught Sophie's eye one last time. She wasn't crying anymore. Instead, she had that look, the one she got when solving puzzles. The one that said she understood. Sometimes surrender is just another word for preparation. They thought they were writing the ending to my story. They didn't realize it was just the beginning of their own undoing. 3 days in the psychiatric facility taught me more about patience than 7 years of marriage ever did. They thought the medication was making me compliant. They didn't know I'd learned that trick from Sophie, holding pills under your tongue until no one's watching. When Nolan came to visit, his concern was picture perfect. The doctors say you're doing better, he said, sitting across from me in the sterile visiting room. More? Rational. I gave him the smile he wanted to see, docile, grateful. I've had time to think. That's wonderful, darling. He reached for my hand. I let him take it, remembering Rachel's police report. He's most dangerous when he thinks he's won. Bernice says Sophie's doing so well. Her stutter's almost gone. My fingers twitched in his grip. He noticed. He always noticed. It's temporary, he added quickly. Once you're better. I know about Marcus Reed's latest investment scheme, I said quietly. His hand went rigid around mine. In the corner, the security camera's red light blinked steadily. You're confused, he said, but his eyes darted to the door. $20 million, I continued. Borrowed against assets you don't own. Did you really think my father wouldn't leave me proof? Marin. The SEC is very interested in those transactions. So is Rachel's lawyer. He released my hand like it burned him. You're having another episode. No, I smiled, reaching into my robe pocket. I'm having a meeting. The door opened. Griffin walked in, followed by Lydia Carson and 2 FBI agents. What is this? Nolan stood, his carefully constructed facade cracking. Justice, I said, standing too. Or maybe revenge. I'm still deciding. You can't. Actually, she can. Lydia stepped forward. Mrs. Whitfield has been working with us from inside this facility. Every conversation recorded, every visitor logged. Including Bernice, Griffin added. She was very chatty about Rachel once the FBI explained her potential liability. Nolan's face contorted, that flash of rage I'd seen so many times before, quickly masked by confusion. This is ridiculous. My wife is unwell. Your wife, I cut in, just spent 3 days gathering evidence while you thought she was sedated. Turns out my law degree wasn't completely wasted after all. The agents moved forward. Nolan backed away, looking around wildly. You don't understand. I did everything for our family. No, I said. You did everything for control. Sophie's stutter, my instability, it was all about keeping us dependent. Afraid. Like Rachel? Griffin asked. Nolan lunged, not at the agents, but at me. 7 years of suppressed rage finally breaking through his perfect mask. But I was ready. Had been ready since I found those bank statements. Since I learned about Rachel. Since I saw my own fear reflected in Sophie's eyes. I stepped aside. He stumbled past me, right into the agent's waiting arms. Marin, he pleaded as they cuffed him, his voice hitting that tender note that used to make me doubt myself. Think about Sophie. I said. That's why I recorded everything. So when she's older, she'll know exactly why we left. As they led him away, Lydia handed me a folder. Custody papers, restraining order, and evidence of financial fraud. Bernice is already singing to avoid charges. You're free. Free. Such a simple word for such a complicated feeling. Sophie, I asked Griffin. Safe with Kate. Away from Bernice. I nodded, my legs suddenly shaky. Griffin caught my arm. You okay? I looked around the room where I'd planned my family's salvation while pretending to be broken. Where I'd finally understood that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to fight back. No, I said honestly. But I will be. As we walked out, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thank you. R. Rachel. The woman whose story had helped me rewrite my own. I typed back, "No. Thank you." Because that's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it's not about getting even. Sometimes it's about making sure the story ends differently for the next person. Sometimes justice and vengeance are just different words for healing. And Sophie and I, we had a lot of healing to do. 6 months after Nolan's arrest, I found myself standing in my father's study again. The room felt different now, lighter somehow, despite the heavy oak furniture and wall of legal books. Or maybe I was the one who was different. Sophie sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through old photos. Her therapy sessions were paying off. She barely stuttered anymore, except when she was excited. Like now. "Mom, look at this one." She held up a picture of me in court, from my first case as a public defender. "You look so strong." "She still does," Griffin said from the doorway. "Maybe even stronger now." I was about to respond when my phone buzzed, a text from Kate. Nolan took the plea deal. 15 years. Bernice agreed to testify. Sophie looked up, reading my expression. "Is it about Dad?" "Yes, sweetheart." I sat beside her, remembering all those parenting books that said honesty was best. "He's going to be away for a long time." She nodded, surprisingly calm. "Because of the bad things he did to you?" "And to Rachel. Among other things." I touched the photo in her hands. "But that's not what we're focusing on now, is it?" "No," she smiled. "We're focusing on your new job. Can I come see your office at the Women's Center?" "Tomorrow, I promised." After we finish unpacking, Griffin cleared his throat. "Speaking of which, there's someone here to see you." Bernice stood in the hallway, looking smaller somehow without her designer clothes and perfect makeup. She held a cardboard box. "I found these," she said quietly, "in Nolan's storage unit. I thought Sophie might want them." Inside the box were photo albums, baby clothes, drawings, memories Nolan had hidden away, trying to control even our past. "Why now?" I asked. Bernice's hands twisted together, a gesture so like Sophie's that it hurt. "I've been seeing someone. A therapist. She's helping me understand patterns, cycles." She looked at Sophie, then back at me. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just understanding, maybe. About fear and what it makes us do." I thought about Rachel's last text. Sometimes the strongest chains are the ones we forge ourselves. "Sophie," I said, "why don't you show Grandma your new art room?" As they walked away, I heard Sophie chattering about her paintings, about her therapy sessions, about how she was learning to be brave. Bernice listened, really listened, maybe for the first time. Griffin touched my shoulder. "You okay?" "I don't know if I'll ever fully trust her," I admitted. "Maybe that's not the point," he said. "Maybe it's about breaking cycles, not fixing everything." I looked around the study, my study now. My father's last gift, along with the evidence that helped free me. On the desk sat a framed photo of Sophie and me at her first art show last month. Beside it, a business card for the Women's Center where I'd be starting work next week, helping others find their way out of situations like mine. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Rachel standing on the porch, our first meeting in person after months of texts and calls. She looked different than her photos, stronger maybe. Or maybe that's just what freedom does to people. "Ready?" Griffin asked. I picked up Sophie's latest drawing from my desk, a family portrait that included Griffin, Rachel, Kate, and yes, even Bernice. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, "My real family." "You know what?" I said. "I think I am." Because that's the thing about revenge and justice and healing. They're not endpoints but doorways. What matters isn't just getting through them, but what you choose to build on the other side. Sophie's laughter drifted down the hallway, mixed with Bernice's quieter tones. Outside, Rachel waited to help plan the center's new legal clinic. And here, in my father's study that had become mine, I finally understood. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about everything being perfect. Sometimes it's just about being free to write your own story. And ours? It was just beginning.
Elizabeth Clayton, called Ellie by friends and family, stood by the window, watching her 8-month-old daughter Emma napping under the Japanese maple tree in the garden. The gentle May breeze rocked the baby's bassinet, filling Ellie's chest with a sense of contented happiness. She had once worked as a buyer at an upscale New York department store, but now devoted her days to childcare. As she sipped her coffee, she was certain it had been the most important decision of her life. Is Emma still sleeping? Ellie turned to see her husband Michael emerging from his office. His gentle brown eyes showed signs of fatigue, yet they were filled with affection. His job as an engineer at an IT company kept him busy, sometimes tying him up in lengthy video conferences even on remote work days. Still, he always made time for his family and readily helped with baby care. Yes, she finally fell asleep. She was crying all night yesterday, so I hope she sleeps soundly today. Michael walked over to the window and put his arm around Ellie's shoulders. You're doing such a wonderful job. Emma is a lucky child. Ellie smiled, leaning against her husband. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by the ringtone of her cell phone in the living room. Looking at the screen, she saw it was from her sister Vanessa. Ellie sighed. It's Vanessa again, she said before answering. I'm sure it's about that fancy baby crib. The conversation with Vanessa went exactly as Ellie had predicted. Vanessa worked as a manager at an upscale brand store downtown and always kept an eye on the latest trends and status symbols. She was asking again about the baby crib she had given to Ellie and Michael. Ellie, are you using that crib yet? I want to see photos. Upload them to Instagram. Ellie closed her eyes, summoning her patience. Not yet, Vanessa. Emma still seems to prefer the bassinet. Still. At 8 months? She must have gotten so big. The elite sleeper can be used from 6 months to 3 years. It's really popular among celebrity moms. I know, but Mom is concerned too. She says it's so disappointing that such an expensive gift isn't being used. Vanessa's voice had a tone of reproach. Ellie looked out the window, narrowing her eyes. Vanessa, can't you just let us go at our own pace? After hanging up, Ellie sat down on the sofa and looked up at Michael with a tired expression. Same conversation again? Michael asked as he sat beside her. Yes. Vanessa and Mom seem to think that not using what they've chosen for us is a personal insult. Family relationships had always been complicated. Her mother Carol, a former high school teacher, was actively involved in local social circles after retirement. She always valued appearances and worried about how others perceived her. Her father Thomas had a mild temperament but tended to follow his wife and Vanessa's opinions. Ellie was always considered the practical one and sometimes criticized for being too plain. I got an email from your mother yesterday, Michael said. They're coming this weekend. Your father too. Ellie frowned. Really? She didn't tell me anything. Maybe they're coming to see that baby crib, Michael said jokingly, but they both knew the truth. Ellie felt a headache coming on. Her family was loving, but sometimes they didn't respect her choices. Especially her mother and Vanessa couldn't understand Ellie's tendency to prioritize practicality and safety, and always advised her to be more stylish. The phone rang again. This time it was Ellie's best friend Rachel. Rachel was a former colleague from when Ellie worked at the department store, and one of the few people with whom she had maintained a friendship. Rachel. I was just wanting to talk to you, Ellie said with relief in her voice. What's wrong? You sound tired. It's my family. They're putting pressure on me again about that baby crib. The elite sleeper. You're still not using it. Ellie hesitated. Actually, I don't plan to use it. Why not? I'll explain, but I'd rather talk about it in person. Okay. How about lunch tomorrow? At that cafe? Thanks, that would be great. After hanging up, Ellie turned to Michael. From her expression, he could tell something was bothering her. Everything okay? He asked. Ellie sank back into the sofa and said, carefully choosing her words, "There's something I need to tell you about that baby crib." Just then, they heard Emma crying from the garden. Michael stood up, saying, "Let's talk later," and headed outside. Ellie watched him go, feeling torn between her desire to avoid conflict with her family and her determination to keep her daughter safe. Perhaps talking with Rachel tomorrow would clarify what she should do. At least Rachel would understand. 3 months ago, Ellie's baby shower had been held at her parents' spacious suburban home. Pastel pink and blue balloons swayed in the garden, and delicate finger foods were beautifully arranged on tables. Amidst gathered friends and relatives, Ellie smiled as she greeted everyone, cradling her growing belly. Then came time for gifts. "Finally, we have something special," Carol announced as Thomas and Vanessa brought in a large box. "This is from all of us." Ellie carefully opened the wrapping paper and found an elegant baby crib inside. The elite sleeper, with its glossy white wood and delicate gold decorations, was undeniably beautiful. "It's perfect for you, sis," Vanessa said with a broad smile. "It matches your minimal interior too, isn't it lovely?" Carol nodded. "It's very popular among celebrity moms right now. That Hollywood actress uses it too. It's a luxury item, so be grateful." Ellie noticed that the price tag had been removed from the box, but she knew this brand's reputation. It probably cost more than half her monthly salary. "Thank you, really," she stammered. "Thank you for such a lovely gift." But deep down, she felt uncomfortable. Why hadn't Vanessa and her parents consulted her and Michael about the simple, practical crib they had already chosen? After the party, while Michael was loading gifts into the car, Vanessa grabbed Ellie's arm. "Thanks for pretending to be happy in front of everyone," she whispered. "I could tell from your face that you didn't like it at first. But trust me, this will make you the envy of other moms." Ellie forced a smile. "I was just surprised." "Thank you, really." Back home, Ellie read the instruction manual for the baby crib. There were many descriptions of the luxury materials and innovative design, with phrases like, "the ultimate sleep experience chosen by celebrity children," appearing repeatedly. However, there was surprisingly little information about safety and material details. "Something bothering you?" Michael peered over her shoulder at the manual. "I don't know," Ellie frowned. "Something feels off." She took out her smartphone and searched for elite sleeper baby crib reviews. Many photos of celebrities and influencers appeared, all proudly showcasing their babies with the same crib. But she found almost no practical reviews of the product itself. The next day, Ellie met Rachel at the cafe. "It certainly looks beautiful," Rachel said, looking at the baby crib photo on Ellie's smartphone. But, it prioritizes appearance over practicality," Rachel shrugged. "It's strange that there's so little detailed information about safety." "You think so too?" Ellie sighed with relief. "I thought I was just being neurotic." "You're a mother. You have every right to be neurotic." That weekend, Ellie and Michael assembled the baby crib. The parts from the box had a luxurious feel, and the assembly instructions were clear. However, Ellie noticed an unnaturally strong smell from the completed bed. "Doesn't this smell strange?" she asked Michael. Michael sniffed it. It has a bit of a new product smell. But it'll probably fade away." Ellie wasn't convinced. She held Emma and brought her near the crib. Strangely, the usually calm Emma suddenly became irritable and began rubbing her face with her small hands. "What's wrong, Emma?" Ellie observed her baby with concern. Small red spots began appearing on Emma's cheeks. Ellie quickly moved her daughter away from the crib and took her to another room. After a few minutes, the rash began to fade, and Emma calmed down. The next day, Ellie conducted an experiment. When she brought Emma near the baby crib again, the same reaction occurred. This time she even started coughing. Ellie immediately moved the baby away, feeling deep anxiety. Michael, she called her husband. There's something wrong with this bed. Emma seems to be having an allergic reaction. Michael was skeptical at first, but changed his attitude when Ellie showed him photos on her smartphone, Emma's red rash near the crib, and her normal skin went away from it. What could be causing this? He frowned. I don't know. But I think we should stop using it. That afternoon, Ellie secretly purchased another baby crib from a local children's store. She chose one that was simple, practical, and had clearly displayed safety standards. She set it up in another room and started putting Emma to sleep there. The baby showed no problems. However, the issue was the relationship with her family. How's the crib? Does Emma like it? Messages from Vanessa came almost daily. It's lovely, thank you, Ellie continued to lie. Send photos. The demand came from her mother as well. Ellie made up excuses. She's sleeping right now. Let me tidy up first. I'll take a nice photo this weekend. And today, Michael had come home early from work and sat Ellie down on the sofa. I want you to be honest, he said with a serious expression. Why aren't you using that luxury baby crib? I know you're hiding another bed because of concern for family. But why? Ellie took a deep breath. See for yourself, she smiled. Try putting the baby to sleep. With a confused expression, Michael picked up Emma and approached the elite sleeper. As Emma began to flail her little arms and legs, and the moment Michael tried to place her in the bed, her skin began to redden and swell with intense coughing. Michael immediately picked Emma up, his face pale. My goodness, he said in a trembling voice. Something is definitely wrong. Ellie took Emma from him and gently rubbed her back. This is what I wanted to tell you. Something from the bed is causing Emma to have an allergic reaction. Michael's expression became determined. We need to investigate. This isn't just a sensitivity issue. It could be something serious. Ellie looked at her husband and felt true relief for the first time. At least he would be on her side. But she knew there would be conflict with her family ahead. Your mom and the others are coming next week, right? She asked. Michael nodded. We'll have to explain. Do you think they'll understand? I don't know, Michael answered honestly. But Emma's health comes first. That's for sure. Holding Emma close, Ellie wavered between anxiety about what was to come and determination to protect her child's safety. The next morning, Michael called his company to take time off. Ellie showed a relieved expression at his determination. How should we investigate? Ellie asked, sitting at the kitchen table and drinking coffee. Michael opened his laptop and said, First, we need to identify what this is. Let's collect samples from the bed. Ellie nodded and said, Rachel's friend Natalie is a medical journalist. I'll try contacting her. Michael began carefully examining the baby crib. He collected small samples from areas with particularly strong odors. Ellie was moved by Michael's serious expression. Until yesterday, she had worried that she might be overreacting, but now she felt they were tackling the problem together. My college friend David is a pediatrician, Michael said. He might be able to arrange tests. Ellie picked up her smartphone and searched for elite sleeper health issues. The first results were mostly corporate press releases and positive reviews. But after scrolling through several pages, she found several social media links with "content has been removed" messages. This is strange, she frowned. There are lots of deleted posts. Michael peeked at her screen. That's suspicious. Something might be being covered up. That afternoon, Ellie met with Rachel and her friend Natalie. Natalie was a journalist who had written numerous articles about the safety of children's products. Natalie said, taking a sip of coffee, Actually, I think I've heard something about this brand. She opened her laptop and began checking her files. "Here it is," she suddenly exclaimed. Last year, a blogger deleted all her content after posting a critical review of the elite sleeper. "I found it strange and tried to contact her, but..." "And?" Ellie leaned forward. She didn't want to talk. It seemed like there was some legal issue. The three women looked at each other. "So, you're saying someone is suppressing information about known problems?" Rachel said. "It's possible," Natalie chose her words carefully. "I'll investigate further." 2 days later, Michael received a call from his friend David. His voice was filled with tension. "Mike, the test results for your samples are in. I'm afraid it's not good news." Michael switched to speaker mode so Ellie could hear too. "What did you find?" Ellie asked anxiously. "High concentrations of formaldehyde and a type of flame retardant that was banned several years ago. They seem to be particularly present in the wood finish and adhesives. These can definitely cause skin irritation and respiratory problems." Ellie and Michael looked at each other, holding the phone with trembling hands. "David, thank you so much," Michael said. "Is there anything we can do?" "I'll create an official report. This shouldn't be sold in the first place. I recommend reporting it to the Consumer Product Safety Commission." After ending the call, they were silent for a while. Tears of anger and sadness welled in Ellie's eyes. "Our family gave Emma poison as a gift," she said in a trembling voice. Michael took her hand. "They didn't mean harm. But now, we need to find out the truth." That night, Natalie contacted them. Her voice was excited. "Ellie, you were right to be suspicious. According to my industry sources, the Elite Sleeper is a brand designed for appearance and prestige, while the actual products are cheaply produced in unlicensed factories in China. They're using connections to bypass safety standards." "But how? American safety standards are supposed to be strict, aren't they?" Ellie asked in confusion. "That's the problem. They've reclassified their products as high-end furniture to avoid the rigorous testing required for children's items. Plus, they provide free samples to celebrities for promotion and pressure to keep problems from surfacing." Ellie trembled with anger. "So other babies are at risk too?" With a determined expression, she opened social media and posted about her experience and warning. However, hours later, the post was deleted. Instead, a warning email from Elite Sleeper's legal department had arrived in her inbox. Ellie shuddered at the message, "Spreading false claims about our product constitutes defamation." That weekend, Vanessa and their parents visited Ellie's home as planned. Ellie opened the door while holding Emma, greeting them with a tense smile. "Emma, you've grown so much." Carol reached for her granddaughter. "Let me hold her." Ellie handed her daughter to her mother and led the family to the living room. But Vanessa's eyes immediately went to the new baby crib in the corner of the room. "What's this?" She raised an eyebrow. "Where's the crib we gave you?" Ellie took a deep breath. "I have something to talk to you about." As she began to explain the issues with the baby crib, her mother's expression gradually hardened. When Ellie talked about the test results, Vanessa folded her arms and snorted. "You're just being too neurotic," Vanessa said coldly. "Babies are sensitive. Thousands of babies use that crib, and I've never heard of any problems." "Is that really so?" Ellie countered. "Because information is being deliberately suppressed." Carol sighed. "Elizabeth, in our day we didn't worry about these chemicals. You young parents worry too much about everything." Ellie tried to control her anger. "Mom, this isn't about being overly worried." Emma actually showed a reaction. She got a rash and started coughing. Thomas spoke for the first time. "If there really is a problem, it's worth investigating, isn't it?" "Thomas." Carol looked accusingly at her husband. Are you taking her side too? The argument heated up, and when Carol criticized, "Your parenting is too perfectionist," Ellie finally exploded. "Are you prioritizing appearances over your child's health?" she said with a trembling voice. "This bed is making Emma sick." A tense silence filled the room. At that moment, Michael returned from work. He sensed the atmosphere and immediately understood the situation. "Everyone, let me demonstrate," Michael said quietly. He brought out the elite sleeper and placed it in the center of the living room. "Can I hold Emma?" he asked Carol. Carol hesitantly handed her granddaughter to him. Michael brought Emma close to the crib, and as everyone watched, red spots began to appear on Emma's skin, and she started to cough. He immediately moved the baby away. "I can't believe it," Thomas said with a shocked expression. Rachel and Natalie arrived just at that moment. Natalie opened her laptop and showed the family the evidence she had gathered. "This is consumer fraud," Natalie explained. "Products sold at high prices for their attractive design, but they don't meet safety standards." Carol was speechless and sat down on the sofa. Thomas shook his head bitterly. "To think we gave such a thing to our granddaughter." But Vanessa still didn't seem convinced. "What happens to me if this goes public? I recommended it on Instagram." Ellie felt desperate at those words. "You still care about appearances? More than Emma's health?" "Of course not," Vanessa retorted, but couldn't meet her eyes. Ellie picked up Emma and showed strong determination. "I choose my daughter's safety over family appearances. And for other babies' sake too, I intend to reveal the truth." It was clear that a deep rift had formed in the family. Thomas had begun to show understanding for Ellie's opinion, but Carol and Vanessa were turning away in fear of embarrassment. Ellie made up her mind, preparing for the difficult battle ahead. The fight to protect truth and safety had begun. The next morning, Ellie woke up to a notification sound on her smartphone. Looking at the screen, she saw an Instagram post from Vanessa. "A weekend that made me think about the importance of family connections. Sadly, some people can't understand the value of luxury items. #family bonds #misunderstood." Ellie sighed. After yesterday's confrontation, Vanessa and her mother had left in anger. Only her father Thomas had gently patted her shoulder before leaving, quietly saying, "I'll look into it." "You okay?" Michael came in from the kitchen and offered coffee. "Vanessa has started throwing shade on social media," Ellie handed him the phone. Michael scrolled through the screen and frowned. "Look at the comments section. Your friends are supporting you." Indeed, several of Ellie's friends had commented. Even Rachel had written, "Safety should be the priority." Ellie put down her phone and renewed her determination while preparing Emma's milk. "If I stay quiet, other babies will be at risk." That afternoon, Ellie posted a question in her local mothers group chat about the safety of baby products. She didn't mention specific brand names, instead raising the topic as a general discussion about safety of design-oriented luxury baby products. The response was surprisingly large. She found that many mothers had similar concerns. One woman revealed, "My child also developed a rash from a luxury brand product," and another shared rumors that some companies forge safety certificates. As Ellie was preparing dinner, her smartphone rang. It was an email from an unknown number. "Ms. Elizabeth Clayton, this is the legal department of Elite Sleeper Company. Spreading false information about our products constitutes defamation and business obstruction. Please contact us urgently regarding this matter." Her hands trembled. Michael placed his hand on her shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid. You're doing the right thing." The next day, Ellie and Michael filed a formal complaint with the Consumer Safety Agency. They attached David's test results and the evidence Natalie had gathered. The procedure was easier than expected, but the official warned, the investigation will take time. A few days later, Rachel called. Why don't we hold a workshop tomorrow at the mother's group about baby product safety? Natalie says she'll speak as an expert. Really? Ellie was surprised. I'm a bit scared after getting warning emails from the manufacturer. That's exactly why it's important, Rachel said strongly. They want to silence you. But you're not alone. The workshop was held at the local community center, and more mothers gathered than expected. Natalie explained about safety standards for children's products, and Ellie shared her experience as a consumer. She avoided specific brand names, using the general term luxury baby crib. What I want to say is the importance of not judging by price or appearance alone, but investigating safety on your own, she concluded. However, during the presentation, the door opened and Vanessa entered with an angry expression. "How dare you do this?" Vanessa said with a trembling voice. "You're ruining the family's reputation." As the venue fell silent, Ellie took a deep breath. "Vanessa, let's not discuss this here." "I'll show everyone," Vanessa persisted. "That my sister is just being too neurotic." Ellie looked at Michael. He nodded slightly and stood up, holding Emma. "I'll show you evidence," Ellie said quietly, signaling to Michael. He took out a prepared sample piece of the Elite sleeper from his bag and brought it near Emma. Immediately, a reaction began to appear on the baby's skin. The audience gasped. "This is not an act," Ellie said to the participants. "As mothers, it's our duty to protect our children's safety. Even if our family doesn't understand." She looked at Vanessa. Her sister's face showed anger, confusion, and a little shame. "Are you really saying you're selling products that endanger babies?" Vanessa lowered her voice. "What I'm saying is that we shouldn't prioritize appearances over safety," Ellie answered gently. The meeting caught the eye of a local news reporter, and a short feature was included in the next morning's news. Ellie's interview was included. 3 days later, a press release announced that the Consumer Safety Agency had begun investigating Elite Sleeper. A week later, the manufacturer announced a voluntary product recall for quality improvement. Learning this, Ellie felt a sense of achievement but also deep fatigue. She had won, but could her relationship with her family be repaired? As Ellie sat on her home porch, she had an unexpected visitor. It was her mother, Carol. "May I come in?" she asked in a smaller voice than usual. Ellie nodded. Carol sat on the sofa and after a moment of silence said, "You were right." "Mom." Ellie searched for words. "No, listen. I was wrong. I'm sorry for criticizing your parenting. You are, truly a good mother, Elizabeth." Ellie took her mother's hand. Tears welled in her eyes. That night, Michael embraced Ellie in the kitchen and whispered, "You did the right thing. You're the best mother." Looking at Emma's sleeping face, Ellie thought that the rift with her family would heal with time. And most importantly, she had no regrets about trusting her instincts and standing up to protect her daughter. 6 months later, Ellie invited her family to her home garden. Brunch was prepared on the table, and Emma, now a year and a half old and beginning to toddle, played energetically under the shade of morning glories. "I have something to tell everyone," Ellie stood up with a glass in hand. The entire family, Michael, her parents, and Vanessa, focused on her. "We're expecting our second child." Cheers erupted, and Carol hugged her daughter. "Congratulations, Elizabeth." Thomas patted Michael's back with misty eyes. Over the past 6 months, family relationships had gradually been repaired. Elite Sleeper eventually recalled all products and announced new models that complied with safety standards. They never publicly acknowledged the previous issues, but it became a significant lesson within the industry. "Look at this," Vanessa showed her smartphone to Ellie. Once filled with luxury brand posts, her Instagram now featured hashtags like practical choices and child safety. At the store, I now only deal with products that have received safety certification, she said, looking a bit embarrassed. After that incident, she temporarily lost her influence on social media. But now she had found a new direction. That's wonderful, Vanessa, Ellie said sincerely. Carol sat with Emma on her lap and said, safety is more important than appearances. She still occasionally reverted to old habits, but now prioritized her grandchild's health. After lunch, Thomas called Ellie aside. Your courageous action was right, he admitted candidly for the first time. I should have stood by you sooner. It's okay, Dad, Ellie gently squeezed her father's arm. Family isn't always perfect. But we can learn from each other. That evening, Rachel came to visit. She and Natalie continued their awareness campaign about baby product safety, and Ellie's brave action had influenced many families. You've saved many babies' lives, Rachel said, hugging Ellie. You should be proud. After Michael put their daughter to bed, he sat with Ellie on the porch swing. As the twilight sky turned red, Ellie felt a peaceful satisfaction. It was tough, Michael said, holding her hand. Confronting family was painful, Ellie answered honestly. But I'm glad I stood up for my child's safety. In the bedroom, Ellie gazed down at the sleeping Emma. Her daughter slept peacefully in a safe wooden crib. Space for the second baby was already prepared next to it. From this experience, Ellie learned the importance of trusting her instincts as a mother. And that sometimes, even if it means confronting those you love most, you need the courage to speak up for your children. In the moonlight streaming through the window, Ellie gently placed her hand on her stomach. A new life was growing. She was ready to stand up to protect her children in any situation. Because that's what a mother's unwavering love is all about. The headquarters of Campbell Construction Supply was located about a 20-minute drive from a quiet residential area in the Boston suburbs. It had red brick exterior walls with large glass windows, a building originally constructed by George Campbell's grandfather in the 1940s and renovated by third-generation George 20 years ago. In her spacious office on the top floor of the three-story building, Melissa Campbell was gazing out the window. The autumn sunlight bathed the red and gold leaves of the street trees, casting the same golden light on her soft blonde hair. Melissa was the co-manager of this leading New England construction materials company. Multiple contracts were stacked on her desk, and the latest inventory management system was displayed on her computer screen. From the adjacent room, she could hear her sister Vanessa's voice. She seemed to be talking on the phone with a client bank. Yes, the second quarter performance exceeded expectations. Yes, thank you. It's all thanks to Melissa securing 3 major projects. Melissa smiled. Vanessa was acknowledging her achievements, at least on the surface. Vanessa always had perfect appearance. Today she was dressed in a navy blue pantsuit with a pearl necklace, looking as if she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. In contrast, Melissa preferred practical slacks and button-down shirts, clothing that allowed her to visit construction sites when necessary. I've reviewed the materials for tomorrow's meeting with Hudson Development. Vanessa entered Melissa's office holding a stack of documents. Her dark brown hair was cut to bounce at her shoulders, and her green eyes reflected sharp intelligence. Thanks, V, Melissa replied affectionately. Were there any issues? All the numbers are perfect. As usual, Vanessa said confidently. But their requested timeline might be a bit unrealistic. We have supply chain issues. I've already spoken with Jim Hudson. They're prepared for some delays. I confirmed it on the phone this morning. Of course you did, Vanessa said, sounding slightly surprised. I'm always impressed by your relationship building skills. It sounded like praise, yet some other emotion seemed to seep through. Melissa sensed this subtle nuance but didn't react. Her relationship with her sister was complicated. On the surface, they were cooperative sisters, but occasionally, competitiveness and tension lingered. Vanessa handled finance and human resources, while Melissa was responsible for technology and sales. They had maintained balance by respecting each other's domains. "Have you reported to Dad?" Vanessa asked. "I talked to him when I stopped by the hospital yesterday. He was pleased, but..." Melissa trailed off. "But what?" "As usual, he told me to increase the profit margin," Melissa shrugged. "Don't worry. We both know his way isn't always right." George Campbell had been in and out of the hospital for heart problems since last year. Although he had stepped back from the company's daily operations, his presence remained strong, and his opinion was always sought for important decisions. He embodied the old-school construction industry values: profits first, emotions second. Melissa and Vanessa's mother, Eleanor, had similar views. Officially retired from the company, she still appeared at the office twice a week to observe the employees and offer advice when necessary, sometimes even when unnecessary. With strict, traditional values, Eleanor blurred the lines between family and business, allowing family hierarchy and obligations to influence business decisions. "Mom called," Vanessa said abruptly. "There's a family meeting tomorrow night. She says it's important." Melissa paused momentarily. "Do you know what it's about?" "She didn't say." "But..." Vanessa hesitated slightly. "I think it might be about the future of the company." Melissa tried to read her sister's expression, but Vanessa quickly looked away. There was a sense that she was hiding something. "All right. I'll be there," Melissa replied. "But first, I need to finish processing the new order from Schneider Industries." "You're always all about work," Vanessa laughed lightly. "But that's your strength too." After Vanessa left the room, Melissa stared at the family photograph on her desk. It was taken during the company's 75th anniversary celebration, showing George and Eleanor, Melissa and Vanessa standing at the company entrance. She could no longer tell what lay behind those smiles. She was often treated as the operations person and frequently excluded from strategic decisions. Even when she spoke at board meetings, she rarely felt her input was taken seriously. However, Melissa had a strength that no one else could match. She had connections throughout the industry and had built relationships with the most important customers. It was a talent that her father and mother had never tried to understand: the ability to build genuine relationships and trust. Did her family truly understand that these relationships were now supporting Campbell Construction Supply? Melissa picked up her smartphone and checked her schedule for tomorrow. Morning meeting with Hudson Development, 2 site visits in the afternoon, and the family meeting in the evening. She sensed that a big change was approaching, though she couldn't yet imagine what form it would take. After 10 o'clock at night, the Campbell Construction Supply headquarters building was almost completely silent. Only dim emergency lights illuminated the hallway leading to the third-floor conference room. Melissa looked up from the pile of documents on her desk and rotated her shoulders to relieve the stiffness in her neck. She had stayed late to review the final estimates in preparation for the meeting with Hudson Development. Finally done, she sighed with relief. From her office window, the nighttime Boston skyline stretched out before her. Tomorrow would be an even longer day. As she began to pack up, she heard faint voices coming from the conference room. Melissa stopped in her tracks. She was supposed to be the only one in the office. The janitor, Frank, worked on the first floor, and no one should be on this floor at this hour. She quietly approached the conference room. The door was slightly ajar, and voices leaked out. "I'm a bit worried about how to tell Melissa at tomorrow's meeting," her mother Eleanor's voice said. Melissa stopped in surprise. Who was her mother talking to? She bent slightly and peered through the gap in the door. A large laptop sat on the conference table with a Zoom meeting displayed on the screen. The screen showed her mother Eleanor, Sister Vanessa, and Father George, who appeared to be participating from a hospital bed. "Don't worry, Mom," Vanessa's confident voice rang out. "Melissa cares more about customer relationships than the company." She might be shocked when she sees the new organizational chart, but ultimately she'll go along. She always has, hasn't she? Melissa held her breath. A new organizational chart. She hadn't heard anything about this. Curiosity and anxiety swelled within her. Should she leave or continue listening? After a moment's conflict, she chose to stay put. As the eldest daughter, it's natural for her to serve the family. Her father George's voice was weaker than usual, perhaps due to his illness, but the weight of his words remained unchanged. For the company's sake, leadership needs to be unified. Vanessa's financial perspective and strategic thinking are essential in today's market. "That's right, George," Eleanor agreed. "Melissa has wonderful technical knowledge and connections, but that's not enough. Under this new organizational structure, she'll be placed where she can excel most." Pain shot through Melissa's chest. She pressed herself against the window frame and listened intently. "I'll be the president, and my sister can just be a regular employee." Vanessa's voice was mixed with excitement. "We've been meeting our quarterly targets because of my financial management. Melissa's sales ability is certainly important, but it's perfect as her role." "But as chief executive..." Vanessa cut herself off. But her intention was clear. Melissa was about to be demoted. Her hands began to shake. "How do you think your sister will react?" her father asked. "She'll understand," her mother's voice was calm. "We'll use Melissa as needed, then discard her when we're done. All along, her talents have been used for the company's benefit. This is no different." Melissa stifled a gasp. The words, "use her as needed, then discard her," stabbed into her heart like a sharp knife. Was this her mother's true feelings? How did she see her as a family member, as a daughter? "We need to maintain her customer relationships," Vanessa continued. "But concentrate decision-making authority with me. Even after Dad recovers, I'll remain CEO." "That's right," George said after coughing. "This company is what I inherited from my father. To pass it on to the next generation, the most capable person should be in charge. Vanessa, you will fulfill that role." Hot tears ran down Melissa's cheeks. For 15 years, she had worked for this company. She joined right after college graduation, starting from the most demanding job sites to build her current position. She had worked late nights, sacrificed weekends, and put her personal life second. All of it was to make the family business successful and to be recognized by her father and mother. "At tomorrow's meeting, we'll formally announce the new positions and titles," Eleanor said. "We plan to give Melissa the title of Director of Technology and Customer Relations. It sounds impressive, but with limited authority and no right to participate in board meetings." "It's getting late," Vanessa said. "Let's end the meeting here. Tomorrow is an important day." Indeed, her father agreed. "Good night, both of you." Even after the screen went dark, Melissa stood frozen in place. The sensation of her world crumbling around her. Betrayal from the family she had trusted. The reality that she had been seen as just a tool. She entered the conference room and stared at the laptop that was still connected. After gently closing it, she walked to the window. The lights of nighttime Boston reflected in her tears. For hours, Melissa returned to her office and continued thinking in the darkness. The sense of alienation she had felt within her family since childhood, the constant feeling of not being enough, the desperation of never being fully recognized no matter how hard she tried. All of it now appeared before her in a clear form. Before dawn, she solidified her resolve. Never again would she be used. Never again would she be someone's tool. Melissa Campbell stood up and took a small notebook from her desk drawer. Inside was a contact list known only to her, a treasure trove of industry key persons and relationships she had built up over many years. "They don't know my value," Melissa whispered quietly. "But they'll soon learn." She picked up her cell phone and dialed a number. Outside it was still dark, the clock showing 5 a.m. "Hello, Robert. It's Melissa. I'm sorry for calling so early. But I need your help. Can we meet today? I have something very important to discuss." The restaurant on the top floor of a high-rise in Boston's financial district was already bustling despite being just after 7 in the morning. Through the large glass windows, there was a panoramic view of the Charles River and the city. There, Melissa was waiting for Robert Stein, one of the most influential investors in the industry. Robert was a heavyweight in real estate and construction, with salt and pepper hair and sharp blue eyes. His relationship with Melissa began 10 years ago, when she was still a newcomer in sales. Impressed by her integrity and knowledge during their first deal, Robert had continued watching over her career. "Melissa." She turned to see Robert smiling cordially. He was dressed in a sophisticated gray suit, walking briskly with a cane in hand. "I'm sorry for calling you out so early," Melissa said, standing up and embracing him lightly. "I'll always take your call," Robert said as he sat down. "It seems there's a serious issue. Business talk usually doesn't start until after 9. Melissa hesitated for a moment, but the anger and determination she had felt since last night pushed her forward. "I need to talk to you about my family," she said quietly. "And about the future of our company." She told him everything she had heard last night. The family's betrayal, their plan to use her as a mere pawn, and the conspiracy to strip her of management rights. As she spoke, Melissa's voice occasionally trembled with emotion, but her eyes held firm resolve. Robert listened silently. His expression grew more severe as she continued. "It's foolish of them to underestimate you," he said after taking a sip of coffee. "I've known George for 40 years, but sometimes I question his judgment. Especially when he misjudges his greatest asset." "Asset?" "Yes, you, Melissa," Robert looked at her with serious eyes. "Everyone in the industry knows. Behind Campbell's success are your relationship-building skills and technical knowledge. Without you, that company is worth only half its value." Melissa felt a warmth in her chest at Robert's words. It was recognition she had never received from her family all these years. "But what should I do?" she asked. "There's a family meeting today. They plan to announce their plan to demote me. Are you going to accept it?" Robert's gaze sharpened. "No," Melissa answered firmly. "I will never be someone's tool again." "But how to fight back?" "Shares," Robert tapped his finger on the table. "What's the stock structure of Campbell?" "It's a family business. Dad holds 45%, Mom has 20%, Vanessa and I each have 15%. The remaining 5% is held by longtime employees." "I see," Robert contemplated. "Your family controls the majority of shares. But if an outside investor were to..." He cut off his words, narrowing his eyes as if calculating something. "Robert, what are you thinking?" "Acquiring Campbell's shares," he said quietly but forcefully. "I have the funds. And industry connections. If we could buy the shares held by your father and mother." "But Dad won't sell," Melissa shook her head. "He considers the company a family legacy. A man weakened by illness sometimes makes unexpected decisions," a gleam flashed in Robert's eyes. "Especially if threatened with a sharp decline in his company's value." Melissa frowned. "A decline in value? What do you mean? What's Campbell's greatest asset?" Robert asked. "The building? Inventory? No, customer relationships." "And who built many of those relationships?" "I did," Melissa began to understand. "Yes. What if your customers started saying they would reconsider their business if you were removed from the company? What would happen to Campbell's value? A plan was beginning to take shape. Melissa mentally organized her network, customers she had built personal relationships with, people who trusted her expertise and integrity. I could invest all my savings to increase my own shares, she solidified her resolve. Even if we can't persuade my father and mother, other shareholders. Exactly, Robert nodded. First, let's contact your customers. Explain the situation and have them express their support for you. At the same time, I'll proceed with acquiring shares. We don't have much time. Throughout the morning, they developed their strategy. Melissa pulled out her customer list and selected the most trusted business partners. Robert called his financial advisors and lawyers to begin preparations for share acquisition. One more piece of advice: before they moved on to lunch, Robert looked at Melissa with a serious expression. At today's family meeting, it's better to pretend you don't know anything. Act like you agree with their plan to buy time. Acting? Melissa hesitated slightly. I'm not good at lying. This isn't a lie, Robert said quietly. This is strategy. You're fighting to protect your value. There's no need to alert the enemy to your plans. Melissa took a deep breath. I understand. I'll try. After the meeting, Melissa returned to the company. With a new sense of purpose and determination, she called 5 key customers during the afternoon. Choosing her words carefully, she mentioned the possibility of organizational changes at the company and emphasized the importance of their relationship. Surprisingly, all the customers immediately expressed their support for her. Melissa, without you, we wouldn't do business with Campbell, the CEO of Toronto Development declared. Other customers had similar reactions. Meanwhile, Robert was moving at an incredible pace. He approached the longtime employees who held the 5% of shares and offered to buy them at twice the market value. Within 3 days, those shares became his. This secures 20% of the shares, Robert reported to Melissa by phone late that evening. Combined with your 15%, that's 35%. We need another 16% for a majority. I can buy another 7% with my savings, Melissa replied. That leaves 9%. I'll handle the rest, Robert said confidently. I'll approach your mother. Eleanor has always been a practical woman. If she sells part of her shares. My mother. Melissa was skeptical. She's the type to consider things that benefit her. Especially if she thinks Campbell's future is in jeopardy. That night, Melissa barely slept. Her heart was filled with complex emotions toward her family and anxiety about what was to come. However, every time she recalled the words she had heard the night before, her determination strengthened. I am not a tool, she said to her reflection in the mirror. I will create a new future with people who understand my value. 2 weeks later, Melissa and Robert's plan began to bear fruit. Surprisingly, Eleanor agreed to sell part of her shares to Robert. Rumor had it that she had begun to doubt the company's future. Feeling the pressure from key customers and market instability, she wanted to secure part of her assets. Through Robert's negotiation skills and strong support declarations from Melissa's customers, they finally acquired 51% of the company's shares. The fate of Campbell Construction Supply was now in their hands. There's no need to wait for the next board meeting, Robert said. Now is the time to act. Melissa nodded. There was no fear in her eyes, only strength and determination that she had sealed away for a long time. I'm ready, she replied. Melissa, can you come to the conference room? Vanessa's voice was a bit higher than usual, with tension seeping through. Melissa, reviewing documents in her office, allowed a faint smile. She had been waiting 2 weeks for this day. I'll be right there. She slowly stood up and organized the papers on her desk. Outside the window, bright spring sunshine illuminated the streets of Boston. Melissa checked her reflection in the window glass. Navy blue pantsuit with a pearl necklace. An outfit specially chosen for today. Not to imitate Vanessa's style. This was battle dress. Entering the conference room, she was greeted by the expected faces. Vanessa, her father George in a wheelchair, and her mother Eleanor. Their expressions revealed that today was special. Her father's face showed strictness mixed with the tension of having to convey something difficult. Her mother appeared calm, but her fingers tapping lightly on the table betrayed her anxiety. And Vanessa had a subtly confident expression, as if assured of victory. "Sit down, Melissa," her father commanded. Melissa silently complied, sitting across from the three of them. "We have important matters to discuss today," her father continued after clearing his throat. "About the future of Campbell Construction Supply. After careful consideration, we've decided to reorganize the company," her mother took over. "We've determined that leadership unification is necessary to respond to the changing times." Melissa said nothing, looking at each of their faces in turn. Following Robert's advice, she was giving a perfect performance. Pretending to be surprised, wearing a slightly confused expression. To put it simply, Vanessa leaned forward and said, "I'm becoming the CEO. Of course, you'll still have an important role, Mel. As Director of Technology and Customer Relations, a position where you can maximize your strengths." "So I'm being demoted?" Melissa asked quietly. "You might see it that way," her father said sternly. "But this is for the benefit of the entire company. Vanessa has a strategic perspective and financial expertise. In today's business environment, such abilities are essential." Melissa contained her emotions and calmly continued her questioning. "What about the board of directors? Will I still be a member?" The three exchanged glances for a moment. "I'm sorry," her mother said. "The board will be downsized. Just George, Vanessa, and myself." Vanessa added, "And your salary structure will change a bit too. Your base salary will remain the same, but the bonus structure will be modified." Melissa took a deep breath. A flame of anger flashed in her eyes for an instant, but she quickly subdued it. It wasn't time yet. "I understand," she replied quietly. "When will this take effect?" The three showed obvious signs of relief. They had expected resistance. "Starting Monday next week," her father said, relaxing his tension slightly. "The official announcement to all employees will be made on Friday." Melissa nodded. "Is there anything else I should know?" "No," Vanessa smiled. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mel. See, we're still the best team, aren't we?" Melissa returned a thin smile. "Yes. The best team." After the meeting, Melissa returned to her office. Her heart was filled with quiet anger and determination, but outwardly nothing had changed. She picked up her phone and sent a brief message. "Proceed as planned." 3 days later, Friday morning arrived. All employees of Campbell Construction Supply were gathered in the large conference room. About 50 employees were seated, with George, Eleanor, and Vanessa lined up on the stage at the front. Melissa sat in the front row, quietly waiting for her moment. "Good morning, everyone," George raised his voice from his wheelchair. "Today we have an important announcement. This is a day we take a new step toward the future of our company." After coughing, he continued, "For many years, I have led this company. But times have changed, and new leadership is needed. As of today, my second daughter, Vanessa Campbell, will become the new CEO." Modest applause arose from the audience. Some employees wore surprised expressions. Many were looking at Melissa. "Furthermore, we will restructure the management team," Eleanor stepped forward and said. "This change is to enable more efficient and strategic decision-making." Just as Vanessa was about to stand up with a broad smile, the doors at the back of the conference room opened, and Robert Stein entered accompanied by several men and women in suits. "Excuse the interruption," Robert's powerful voice echoed through the room. "May I say a word before your announcement?" The room fell silent. The color drained from George's face. "Robert? What do you want?" "I have a report regarding the new shareholder structure," Robert said as he walked to the front. "It directly relates to your announcement today." He took out documents from his briefcase. 51% of Campbell Construction Supplies shares have been transferred to a new shareholder group. This change has been legally registered and is effective immediately. Murmurs arose from the audience. George half rose from his wheelchair. "What? That's impossible." "All transactions were legal, George," Robert said calmly. 10% of Eleanor's 20%, 5% from longtime employees, Melissa's 15%, plus newly acquired 21%. That's 51% total. All eyes turned to Melissa. She slowly stood up and walked to the front. "Good morning, everyone," her voice was unwavering and strong. "I also have an announcement." She stood next to Robert and surveyed the room. "As you know, I've worked at this company for 15 years. I've built customer relationships, deepened technical knowledge, and taken pride in the Campbell name." She briefly looked at her parents and Vanessa. Fear and confusion were evident on their faces. "But recently, I discovered that my family refers to me as someone to use as needed, then discard when done. Apparently, my role is sufficient as just a regular employee." Their words, not mine. The room grew more tumultuous. Eleanor's face turned pale, and Vanessa's lips trembled. "Having acquired 51% of this company's shares, I have the right to change the management team," Melissa continued. "As of today, Rachel Morrison will become the new CEO." She gestured, and one of the women who had accompanied Robert stepped forward. In her mid-50s, Rachel was a respected veteran with 25 years of experience in the construction industry. "And Dad, Mom, Vanessa," Melissa looked directly at the three of them. "You're all fired." The room fell into complete silence. "Melissa, you can't be serious," her father said in a trembling voice. "We're family." "You can't choose your family," Melissa replied calmly. "But you can choose who you work with." "I choose to work with people who understand my value." She turned back to the employees. "Many of you will remain. Rachel and I will create a new organization that properly values talent and contribution. If you have questions, we'll address them individually." Almost as soon as those words ended, Vanessa broke down in tears, and George clutched his chest with a pained expression. Eleanor sat down, looking dazed. Melissa looked at them and delivered her final words. "You have 3 hours to pack your office belongings. Security will accompany you." Then she left the room with Rachel and Robert. In the hallway, Robert gently gripped her shoulder. "Well done, Melissa." Melissa exhaled deeply. "It's not over. This is a new beginning." In her eyes was determination, along with complex emotions. This was a victory, but a painful one. The bonds with her family would be forever changed. But she knew that sometimes difficult choices are necessary to protect one's value. A year later, Boston was experiencing an unusually warm autumn. From the window of Campbell Construction Supplies' new headquarters, Melissa gazed at the Charles River, golden in the sunlight. Beside her, CEO Rachel Morrison was reviewing the latest performance report. Up 25% year-over-year. "Remarkable results," Rachel smiled. "Your customer base expansion strategy has succeeded." Melissa nodded with a sense of quiet satisfaction. "It's the team's achievement. We've created an environment where everyone can use their talents." Since that dramatic day, Campbell had changed significantly. Under Rachel's leadership, the company had grown rapidly, and its industry reputation had risen. As Chief Strategy Officer, Melissa had finally found a place to display her true worth. Employees welcomed the new management team, and morale was at an all-time high due to transparent decision-making processes and fair evaluation systems. "I heard from Robert," Rachel said, taking a sip of coffee. "He's delighted that his investment has doubled." Melissa smiled. "He believed in me. I'm glad I could live up to his trust." As she was leaving the office, Melissa briefly checked her cell phone. It was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. There were no messages from her family. George and Eleanor had moved to a small condominium in Florida. Unable to maintain their once lavish lifestyle, they were forced into retirement. Occasionally, emails came from Eleanor. Initially filled with accusations and anger, their tone had gradually softened recently. Vanessa faced more difficult circumstances. Having lost her position at Campbell, she struggled to find employment with competitors and eventually ended up working as a regular employee at a small building materials company. Several apologetic messages from her had arrived, but Melissa wasn't yet ready to reply. Back in her apartment, Melissa sat on the sofa in front of the fireplace and opened a photo album. Family photos from childhood. Smiling parents and sisters. Had they really been happy then, or had she simply refused to see what wasn't visible? The phone rang, surprising Melissa. It was her mother. "Melissa, what are your plans for Thanksgiving?" Eleanor's voice was different from her once confident tone. "Your father and I, and Vanessa too, we thought we might all get together." Melissa chose her words carefully as she replied, "I'm not sure yet. Let me think about it." "I understand," Eleanor said quietly. We want to see you. We were wrong. We misjudged your value. We want to apologize for that in person." After hanging up, Melissa stared out the window for a long time. She might be able to forgive. Not forget, but forgive. The next day, she told Rachel she would be taking time off for Thanksgiving. "Spending it with family?" Rachel gently asked. "Yes," Melissa answered after a moment's thought. "It might be the start of a new relationship. Maybe that's what family is, not perfect, but family nonetheless." As twilight fell, Melissa turned off the lights in her office and thought, life is unpredictable. A year ago, she was wounded by betrayal. Now, she knows her worth and walks a path she has chosen. And perhaps, though it's not yet certain, she's taking a small step toward reconciliation with her family. "You can't choose your family," she whispered quietly. "But you can choose how to build relationships." A small house surrounded by white picket fences in the suburbs of San Francisco. Olivia Brown's life there was busy but fulfilling. She had worked for 10 years as a marketing manager at Dreamland Entertainment, a major theme park planning company, and had become well respected by her colleagues for her talent and hard work. In the kitchen illuminated by the morning sunlight through the window, Olivia was preparing a lunchbox for her son Noah. 10-year-old Noah was intellectually curious and loved reading books about dinosaurs and space. His eyes always reflected Olivia's features. Though they were a small family of just 2, Noah meant the world to Olivia. "Can I go to the library with Jason after school today?" Noah asked while scooping up his breakfast cereal. His face was full of anticipation for a new adventure. "Of course, but be home by 6 o'clock. Grandma is coming for dinner," Olivia answered with a smile. Her expression revealed a hint of tension. Olivia's mother Carol was a strong-willed woman who never bent her opinions. Her visits always brought a subtle tension. Carol had another daughter, Olivia's sister Vanessa, who always flaunted being her mother's favorite while raising her 8-year-old twin daughters, Emma and Sophia. "My girls are just like me," was something Carol often said. It carried an implicit comparison with Noah and Olivia. Olivia thought she had grown used to this situation over the years, but she couldn't deny that deep down, it still hurt her. After sending her son off to school, Olivia headed to work. That day, she would receive special news. Olivia, thanks to your ideas, the Central Park project was a huge success. The company would like to express our special gratitude, said President Jonathan Higgins as he placed special Universal Studio tickets on her desk. These are special invitations to a newly opening attraction. Enjoy it with your son. On her way home that day, Olivia's heart was filled with joy. Just imagining the moment her son's face would light up at the attraction he had been dreaming of made her fatigue disappear. Noah, I'm going to take you to a special place this Saturday, Olivia was planning in her mind as she opened the door to her home. Noah, Mom has a business trip that I absolutely must go on. Olivia knelt in front of her son and placed her hands on his small shoulders. It's only for 3 days. Grandma will be with you during that time. Disappointment flashed in Noah's eyes, but it quickly changed to understanding. I understand, Mom. But when you come back, we'll go to Universal Studio as promised, right? Of course, Olivia smiled and gently stroked her son's head. The tickets are safely tucked away in my drawer, so don't worry. In her heart, she looked forward to the special day she would spend with her son next weekend. After Olivia left for the airport, Carol arrived to take care of her grandson. Noah, have you finished your homework? She asked formally, but started checking her smartphone without waiting for an answer. Yes, I have. And I was researching about Universal Studio where Mom and I are planning to go, Noah replied excitedly. A new attraction is opening. Carol suddenly showed interest. Universal Studio. When are you going? The weekend after Mom gets back from her business trip. She says we have special tickets. Noah innocently shared the information. That night, after Noah had gone to sleep, Carol sneaked into Olivia's room. Where could it be? She opened the drawer and rummaged through documents and small items. Then she found a gold-embossed envelope. Here it is. Carol opened the envelope and checked its contents. So this is what's special, her eyes gleamed with calculation. She immediately took out her smartphone and called Vanessa. Vanessa. I've found something nice, Carol spoke in a low voice. Olivia has special tickets to Universal Studio. It's for the opening event of a new attraction. Vanessa took the bait on the other end of the phone. Really? Emma and Sophia have been wanting to go. Your girls deserve such a special experience more than her son, Carol declared. I'll bring them tomorrow. The next afternoon, Carol headed to Vanessa's house. The twins Emma and Sophia squealed with delight at their grandmother's visit. Grandma, they both ran up to her at the same time. My sweet angels, Carol hugged them both and told them she had brought a special gift. In the living room, Vanessa was preparing coffee. Here it is, Carol placed the Universal Studio tickets on the table. Since your children are cuter than Olivia's son, I want to give them this special experience. Vanessa's eyes sparkled as she took the tickets. My children deserve special experiences more than my sister's child. She laughed without any remorse. What will you tell Noah? Vanessa asked, as if slightly concerned. Carol shrugged. He'll understand. Besides, Olivia can always afford to buy other tickets. They began planning to take the children on the special day. Their conversation showed not the slightest consideration for Olivia or Noah. 3 days later, Olivia returned from her business trip. Noah, I'm home. She hugged her son. Mom, welcome back. Noah jumped into his mother's arms. I can't find the Universal Studio tickets, his voice was tinged with anxiety. What do you mean? Olivia frowned. I put them away in the drawer. She hurried to her room and opened the drawer. The gold envelope wasn't there. That's strange, she searched the entire room, but couldn't find the tickets. Did you find them? Noah came into the room. His eyes reflected a mix of hope and anxiety. Olivia called her mother. Mom, did you take anything from my room? Oh, those tickets. Carol's voice was casual. I gave them to Vanessa's twins. They'll enjoy such a special experience more, don't you think? Olivia was speechless. Mom, why would you do that? Because your sister's children are cuter than your son. Don't take it personally. Carol's words showed not a trace of guilt. I can't believe this. As Olivia struggled for words, she heard Noah crying. He had been listening to the conversation. Noah, Olivia rushed to her son. He was sitting on the floor, hugging his knees and crying. Why am I not good enough? Noah asked between sobs. Does Grandma like Emma and Sophia more than me? Olivia's heart was torn. She was caught between wanting to heal her son's wounded heart and anger towards her mother. She called Vanessa. Vanessa, I heard from Mom. How could you take my tickets without asking? Don't worry about it, Vanessa answered airily. My children deserve special experiences more than your child. She laughed as she said it. Olivia trembled with rage. But at that moment, a thought occurred to her. She remembered that the tickets came with special conditions. I see. Olivia quietly hung up the phone. While wiping her son's tears, she smiled slightly. Noah, Mom has a good idea. Don't worry. Olivia called her boss at work, explained the situation, and began making plans. Plans to rightfully reclaim what her mother and sister had taken from her son. Saturday morning arrived, full of anticipation for the trip to Universal Studio. Carol and Vanessa had prepared early. The twins Emma and Sophia, dressed in new clothes, stood at the entrance with sparkling eyes. Today is a special day, Carol said, stroking her granddaughters' heads. Grandma has prepared special tickets for you. Yay! Emma jumped up and down. I definitely want to ride the new attraction. I want to meet the princesses. Sophia also shouted excitedly. Vanessa watched her children with a satisfied expression. Meanwhile, in the staff area of the theme park, Olivia Brown was meeting with her boss, Jonathan Higgins. She firmly held Noah's hand, surrounded by employees in staff uniforms. I'm truly sorry for causing trouble like this, Olivia apologized to Jonathan. It's all right, Olivia, Jonathan smiled kindly. The tickets were meant to honor your achievements, so you and Noah are the rightful recipients. Besides, we can use this situation to test our new security system. Noah looked around nervously. Mom, will Grandma and Aunt Vanessa be angry? Olivia looked straight into her son's eyes and gently said, Noah, sometimes it's important to stand up for your rights. We're not doing anything wrong. This was given to me as a reward for my work. Noah nodded slowly. His expression showed mixed emotions, but there was a determination to trust his mother. At the entrance gate, Carol and Vanessa were standing proudly with the twins. Being guided to a special lane, they secretly felt superior as they received envious glances from other tourists. We're getting VIP treatment as special guests, Carol said proudly. She took the gold envelope from her handbag and pulled out the tickets. As she handed them to the gate attendant, her expression was full of confidence. Good morning. I see you have special invitation tickets, a young male staff greeted them with a smile. Yes, for the special opening event, Carol replied proudly. The staff took the tickets and carefully scanned them. His expression froze for a moment. I'm sorry, but these tickets are exclusively for Ms. Olivia Brown. We need to verify with a photo ID. Carol's confident expression crumbled instantly. What did you say? These tickets are special named invitations. Only Ms. Olivia Brown and her immediate family can use them, the staff explained politely but firmly. Vanessa stepped forward. There must be some mistake. We obtained these tickets legally. I'm sorry, but our system also shows that these tickets were issued as a special acknowledgement of Ms. Olivia Brown's contributions. The staff pointed at the screen and continued. These tickets are non-transferable. The blood drained from Carol's face. But I am Olivia's mother. We are family. Immediate family refers to Ms. Olivia and her child, the staff said apologetically. Please wait a moment. I'll call the person in charge. Emma and Sophia couldn't understand the situation and looked at each other anxiously. Mom, can't we go in? Sophia asked, tugging at Vanessa's skirt. It's okay, it's just a procedural issue, Vanessa tried to cover up, but her voice was trembling. A few minutes later, another staff member appeared. Ms. Brown, I apologize, but let me explain about these tickets. These were presented to Ms. Olivia Brown as a special merit award from Dreamland Entertainment. Since ID verification is required, we've called for Ms. Olivia. Carol and Vanessa looked at each other. Their expressions showed fear and regret. You called Olivia? Carol's voice had become small. At that moment, two shadows could be seen walking from the staff area. It was Olivia and Noah. Olivia approached the gate with dignified steps, firmly holding Noah's hand. Good morning, Olivia greeted in a quiet voice. She handed her ID card to the staff and then turned her gaze to Carol and Vanessa. It seems you were trying to use my special invitation tickets. Olivia, Carol was at a loss for words. This was given to me as a reward for my work, Olivia said in a quiet but strong voice. It's a token of appreciation from the company for the success of the Central Park project. Tickets for a special day for me and Noah. Emma and Sophia were confused and started crying. Can't we enter the park? Emma asked between sobs. Olivia smiled gently at the twins. You've done nothing wrong. But sometimes adults make wrong choices. Vanessa was blushing with embarrassment. Olivia, I'm truly sorry. My children deserve special experiences more than my sister's child, Olivia quoted Vanessa's words. That's what you said. Vanessa was speechless. Her arrogance had completely collapsed. Carol covered her face with both hands. Olivia, because your sister's children are cuter than your son, Olivia also repeated her mother's words. That's what you said, Mom. The staff members were awkwardly averting their gaze, but Jonathan, who had been standing next to Olivia, stepped forward. I am Jonathan Higgins, the president of Dreamland Entertainment, he introduced himself. These tickets were given as a special token of appreciation for Olivia's outstanding achievements. They are specially designed to be used only by her and her son. Carol and Vanessa were completely crushed. The twins couldn't understand the situation and were anxiously looking around. Olivia placed her hand on Noah's shoulder and stepped forward. This is a day for me and Noah, she said quietly. We will spend this special day as promised. With those words, Olivia and Noah passed through the gate and walked into the park. Behind them remained the ashamed Carol and Vanessa, and the confused twins. Olivia squeezed Noah's hand tightly. Today is our special day. Noah looked up at his mother and gave a small smile. Thanks, Mom. Olivia and Noah stepped onto the main street of the park. Surrounded by colorful balloons, vibrant decorations, and the smiling faces of happy families, their hearts gradually brightened. However, outside the gate, the twins Emma and Sophia continued to cry. Carol and Vanessa stood with blank expressions, not knowing what to do. Amidst this, Jonathan Higgins approached them. Excuse me, may I have a word with you? He asked in a gentlemanly yet dignified voice. We're leaving, Carol said without looking up. Her voice had an unusual weakness to it. Before you go, there's something you should know about Olivia, Jonathan continued with a serious expression. Do you know how important her work is? Carol and Vanessa silently shook their heads. Jonathan took a deep breath and began to speak. Olivia is one of our company's most brilliant marketing managers. Thanks to her ideas, the Central Park project achieved remarkable success. She single-handedly turned around a project that was expected to fail. Emma and Sophia stopped crying and began to listen to the adults' conversation. Olivia worked almost without rest for 3 months. Sometimes she worked through the night. All of it was to give her son a good life. Jonathan paused briefly before continuing. She never complained. Rather, she was always positive and continued to inspire the team. Tears welled up in Carol's eyes. I didn't know. She probably doesn't talk about her work with her family, Jonathan smiled. Her modesty is another one of her wonderful qualities. In the park, Olivia and Noah were waiting in line for an attraction. Noah looked up at his mother with a thoughtful expression. Mom, is what that man said true? Did you get these tickets because you did special work? Olivia answered honestly, though a bit hesitantly. Yes. I was in charge of a project called Central Park. It succeeded because many people collaborated. That's amazing. Noah's eyes sparkled. Mom, you're incredible. Olivia laughed embarrassedly. Mom is just working hard for you. At that moment, a voice called from behind them. Olivia, do you have a moment? Jonathan approached them. Behind him were Carol, Vanessa, and the twins. Olivia turned around with a tense expression. Jonathan. What is it? I talked with them, Jonathan said quietly. I told them about your achievements. Carol and Vanessa stood with apologetic expressions. The twins held their mother's hands, looking frightened. Carol stepped forward. I knew almost nothing about your work. I didn't understand what a tremendous responsibility you carried. I'm truly sorry, Vanessa said tearfully. We did a terrible thing. Olivia stood with her hand on Noah's shoulder, as if protecting her son. Jonathan suggested in a gentle voice, Olivia, we could specially arrange tickets for everyone. How about enjoying this day with the whole family, in honor of you? The atmosphere tensed instantly. Complex emotions swirled in Olivia's heart. The option of reconciling with her family versus keeping the promise to her son. She quietly took a breath and firmed her resolve. Thank you, Jonathan, Olivia answered in a calm but strong voice. But today is a day I promised to my son. They can come another time. Carol and Vanessa looked surprised but quickly showed understanding. Of course, Carol nodded deeply. We don't intend to interfere with your special day. Sis, can we talk later? Vanessa asked in a small voice. Olivia thought for a moment before answering. Of course. But right now, I want to cherish my time with Noah. Noah looked up at his mother and held her hand with his small one. His eyes were filled with pride and security. Carol, Vanessa, and the twins left the park. After they were gone, Jonathan placed his hand on Olivia's shoulder. Wonderful decision. You truly are a strong mother. Thank you, Olivia smiled quietly. As he was leaving, Jonathan handed her a card. We've arranged a special VIP tour for today. Have the best day in the park. Olivia and Noah's special day began. Guided by a VIP guide, they sat in the front row of new attractions, spent special time with characters, and enjoyed countless experiences that wouldn't normally be possible. At lunchtime, before a meal at a special restaurant, Noah asked his mother, Mom, why did you only come with me? Wouldn't it have been more fun if everyone came? Olivia looked into her son's eyes across the table. Noah, what's important is keeping promises. I wanted to honor my promise to you. She paused slightly before continuing. Also, sometimes it's necessary to value yourself. If you always give in, you can't build true relationships. But Grandma and Aunt Vanessa looked sad, Noah said with innocent eyes. Yes, Olivia answered honestly. But sometimes we learn from sad experiences. I think Grandma and the others learned something important today. During the afternoon parade, Olivia and Noah watched from special seats as colorful floats passed by. Noah's eyes shone with excitement and joy, and Olivia's heart was filled with fulfillment. Mom, Noah said quietly as they walked through the park, wrapped in magical light at dusk. Today is the happiest day of my life. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. Noah. I was happy that you fought for me, Noah continued with a serious expression. What Grandma said was sad, but I was so happy that you put me first. Olivia hugged Noah. You are my most precious person, Noah. I will always put you first. Just before the night fireworks show began, they sat on a bench in front of the magical castle. Olivia put her arm around Noah's shoulder and gently pulled him close. Look, Noah, Olivia pointed at the sky. The fireworks are starting. As the first fireworks were launched into the night sky, vivid light illuminated their faces. Noah's eyes were filled with wonder and joy. Mom, Noah whispered in Olivia's ear amid the roar of fireworks. I love you. I love you too, Noah, Olivia answered as she gently stroked her son's head. You are my pride. As fireworks colored the night sky, the bond between mother and son seemed to have deepened even more through today's events. This special day would forever be etched in their hearts. On the way home, carrying the tired and sleeping Noah, Olivia felt a strange peace in her heart. Today's events had been painful, but they also taught her something important. The importance of standing up for herself and her loved ones. After returning home and putting Noah to bed, Olivia sat on the living room sofa and reflected on the day. The phone rang, and her mother's name was displayed on the screen. Olivia took a deep breath and decided to answer the phone. Today was over, but a new relationship was about to begin. Healing would take time, but through today's experience, she sensed somewhere in her heart that everything was slowly moving in a good direction. A month later, on a peaceful Sunday morning. Unusually, 3 generations were gathered in Olivia's kitchen. Carol was making pancakes, and Noah, Emma, and Sophia were playing around the table. Vanessa was brewing coffee and having a calm conversation with Olivia. I learned this recipe from my mother, Carol smiled as she flipped a pancake. I used to make them for you when you were little. Olivia looked at her mother with a slightly surprised expression. It was rare for Carol to gently talk about old memories. I remember, Olivia answered quietly. It was a Sunday morning treat. During this month, the family relationships had gradually changed. The day after the Universal Studio incident, Carol visited Olivia's house and spent a long time apologizing. Reflecting on years of neglect towards Olivia, she showed tears of shame for her actions. I was wrong, Carol confessed that day with a trembling voice. I refuse to see your efforts, your strength. Vanessa also expressed regret and said she understood her sister's hard work for the first time. I never considered how difficult things have been for you, sis. Rebuilding trust couldn't be accomplished overnight, but small steps were accumulating. Carol started picking up Noah from school once a week. Vanessa began to take an interest in Olivia's work and listen to her stories. Pancakes are ready. Carol's voice calling the children brought Olivia's thoughts back to the present. Yay! The 3 children cheered. Noah had become friends with Emma and Sophia, and was beginning to develop a bond as cousins. After breakfast, Olivia was spending time with Noah in the garden. Mom, I'm nervous about tomorrow's presentation, Noah said in a small voice. It'll be fine, Olivia hugged her son's shoulders. You worked hard. That's what matters most. In the living room, Carol and Vanessa were quietly conversing. It's amazing that Olivia is being promoted to department head, Vanessa said with admiration. Yes, Carol nodded. She was always strong. No matter how much we hurt her, she kept moving forward. Last week, Olivia received news that she would be promoted to a department head position. Your leadership and creativity are essential to our company, Jonathan said as he announced her new position. When she shared this good news with Noah, her son jumped with joy. Mom, congratulations. His eyes shone with pure pride. Can I brag to my friends? While success at work was pleasing, what warmed Olivia's heart the most was that the bond with her son had deepened even further. The Universal Studio incident was a moment when she stood up for her son, and it seemed to have made a strong impression on Noah's heart. Olivia, Carol came out to the garden and called. May I come to see the presentation tomorrow? Olivia thought for a moment, then smiled. Of course, Mom. Noah will be happy too. In the evening, after the family had gone home, Olivia and Noah were relaxing on the sofa. Did you have fun today? Olivia asked her son. Yes, Noah answered honestly. Grandma and Aunt Vanessa have changed, haven't they? Yes, Olivia nodded quietly. People can change. I won't forget how you stood up for me that day, Noah said with a serious expression. I want to be strong like you, Mom. Olivia hugged her son. The change born from painful experiences was now lighting a small ray of hope around them. It wasn't perfect, but they were moving forward little by little. That was enough. Outside the window, the sunset was gently illuminating the cityscape. A new day tomorrow seemed to be waiting for them, carrying further possibilities. A family bond in the true sense was about to begin. As the morning sun streamed into the streets of Philadelphia, Margaret Wilson was already awake. She gazed at the skyscrapers visible from her window as she took a sip of coffee. Today was a special day. After years of hard work, she had finally secured a position as a senior financial analyst at the prestigious investment firm Bradford Capital. Mom, today's your final interview, right? Came Samantha's voice from behind her. Still in her pajamas, the 10-year-old girl rested her chin on her mother's shoulder. Margaret smiled and gently stroked her daughter's hair. Today is just a formality, dear. I've already received the offer. It's just the final paperwork and an office tour. Samantha hugged her mother. Congratulations. I know you'll do an amazing job. Margaret felt a warmth in her heart at her daughter's words. For 10 years as a single mother, she had worked desperately to raise her daughter while simultaneously building her career. She had attended night school to earn her qualifications, gained experience at smaller companies, and finally secured an offer from an industry leader. It hadn't been an easy road, but she felt a sense of pride in herself for never giving up. While preparing breakfast, Margaret thought about her mother, Eleanor Wilson. Her mother had worked as an executive secretary at a large Philadelphia corporation for over 30 years and maintained extensive connections in the business world even after retirement. However, her relationship with Margaret had never been particularly good. Especially after her younger sister Vanessa was born, her mother's affection had clearly shifted toward Vanessa. Despite graduating from college, Vanessa had never held a proper job and continued to live comfortably in their mother's home. Still, her mother called Vanessa "my jewel" and continued to spoil her. Mom, we're going to Grandma's house this evening, right? Samantha asked as she spread jam on her toast. Margaret sighed. Yes, I need to tell her about my job offer. In truth, Margaret had mixed feelings about sharing the news with Eleanor. Her mother would outwardly celebrate her daughter's success, but whether she was genuinely happy was doubtful. In the past, she had made comments like, "A single mother couldn't possibly work at such a large company." Nevertheless, Margaret intended to inform Eleanor out of a sense of duty both as an adult and as a daughter. "I want to show Grandma my new drawing," Samantha said. "Of course, we'll bring it along," Margaret replied, though inwardly she was reluctant. Eleanor was cold to Samantha as well. She seemed to hold prejudice against children of single parents, and showed little affection even to her own granddaughter. Meanwhile, Vanessa often made blatantly nasty remarks toward Margaret and Samantha. She would say things like, "Big sister had a child when she was young and gave up on any career," or, "Children from single-parent homes tend to become problem children, don't they?" She had no qualms about saying such things even in front of Samantha. Margaret glanced at the clock and hurriedly began to get ready. "Sam, we're going to be late for school. Hurry up." After dropping her daughter off at school, Margaret headed to Bradford Capital. Standing in front of the skyscraper, she took a deep breath. This was the moment when all her hard work would pay off. She reminded herself that she had earned this position through her own abilities and efforts. In the evening, Margaret picked up her daughter Samantha from school, and they headed to her mother Eleanor's house together. In the car, Margaret said to her daughter, "No matter what Grandma and Aunt Vanessa say, don't let it bother you. We'll be fine as long as we have each other." Samantha nodded slightly. "I know, Mom. I'm proud of you." Encouraged by those words, Margaret rang Eleanor's doorbell, inwardly anxious about how her job news would be received. A week passed. Margaret was preparing for her first day at her new workplace the following week. She had gathered all the necessary documents and mentally prepared herself. Her daughter Samantha was excited about her mother's new job and kept asking, "Can I see a picture of your desk?" That afternoon, Margaret's smartphone rang. The screen displayed Bradford Capital. Thinking it was probably a final confirmation call, Margaret answered with a smile. "Hello, this is Margaret Wilson." However, the words she heard from the other end of the line left her frozen. "Ms. Wilson, this is James Collins from Human Resources. I'm calling to confirm something." The male voice sounded confused. "We recently received notice from your mother that you would be declining the position." Margaret couldn't believe her ears. "What? Declining? I haven't declined anything. There must be some mistake." On the other end of the phone, James could be heard shuffling papers. "Well, we received communication from Eleanor Wilson stating that due to family circumstances, Margaret Wilson would be declining the position." "My mother." Margaret was speechless. Various thoughts swirled in her head. Why would her mother do something like this without her knowledge? "I'm sorry, this is a huge misunderstanding. I'll come explain immediately." As soon as she hung up, Margaret was overcome with intense anger and confusion. What was happening? Why was her mother trying to make her give up the job she had worked so hard to secure? "Sam, I need to go to Grandma's house. I'm going to call Jessica's mom and see if you can stay over tonight." Samantha looked anxious at her mother's distressed state but nodded. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine, don't worry," Margaret tried to reassure her daughter, but she herself felt like her chest was being crushed with anxiety. Driving quickly, Margaret arrived at her mother's house 30 minutes later. Her anger was evident in the forceful way she knocked on the door. Vanessa opened the door. Seeing her sister, she feigned surprise. "Well, big sister. What brings you here at this hour? Where's Mother?" Margaret asked, trying to control her anger. "In the living room." But before that, Margaret cut off Vanessa's words and entered the house. In the living room, Eleanor was reading a magazine while drinking tea. When she saw Margaret, she smiled. The seemingly genuine smile only made Margaret angrier. "Maggie, what's wrong? You look upset. Can you explain about my job? Why did you contact Bradford Capital to decline the offer?" Margaret's voice trembled with anger. Eleanor placed her magazine on the table and elegantly took a sip of her tea. "Oh, that," she said as casually as if discussing the weather. "I recommended Vanessa instead because that job would be too difficult for you." Margaret was speechless. "What?" Eleanor stood up and walked to the window. "It's fine, Maggie. I asked an old friend who's an executive at the company to recommend Vanessa. She's better suited for that job. That job that I spent years preparing for, went through multiple interviews, and earned qualifications to get." Margaret shouted. "What right do you have to make decisions about my life?" At this moment, Vanessa entered the living room. There was a malicious smile on her face. "A housekeeper suits you better, big sister. It's best for you to just be a mom taking care of your daughter. You're not cut out for a career." Margaret was shocked, speechless. "Why would you do this?" "Maggie, calm down," Eleanor said coldly. "A single mother couldn't possibly handle such an important job. How are you planning to work late every night? What about Samantha?" "That's for me to decide. Samantha and I make our own decisions." "See how emotional she's getting already." Eleanor exchanged glances with her younger daughter. "That's proof you can't handle it. Vanessa can do the job calmly." Margaret was stunned. "You've always been like this. Never acknowledging anything I do, always favoring Vanessa." Her voice caught. "Why? Why do you hate me so much?" Eleanor looked at Margaret as if looking at a son. "I don't hate you. This is for your own good." "For my own good?" Margaret gave a bitter laugh. "Ruining my life is for my own good." "You're being dramatic," Vanessa interjected. "It's not like your life is over. You can just focus on raising your child. Or, can't you do that?" This comment pushed Margaret's anger to its peak. "Enough. What you've done is unforgivable. I'm going to contact Bradford Capital right now and tell them the truth." "It's pointless," Eleanor said coldly. "James is an old friend, and it's already decided. Vanessa starts work next week." Margaret looked at her mother and sister, unable to find any familial love in them. Her chest ached, and tears welled up in her eyes. "Fine," she said quietly. "But this isn't over." Margaret left the house. Once in her car, tears streamed down her cheeks. Thinking about Samantha made her chest tighten further. How would she explain this to her daughter? How could she answer the question of why Grandma and Aunt Vanessa were bullying Mom? As she drove toward Jessica's house, Margaret made a resolution. "I won't let my mother and sister control my life anymore," she vowed to herself. She would look for a new job tomorrow and consider legal options if necessary. For Samantha's sake, and especially for her own, she had to fight back against this injustice. Her phone rang. It was her friend Jessica, calling to let her know that Samantha had arrived safely and was now playing with her daughter. Somewhat relieved, Margaret pulled over to the side of the road and took a deep breath. "I can be strong. I will overcome this." Looking up at the twilight sky, Margaret repeated these words to herself. After spending the night at Jessica's house, Margaret sprang into action early the next morning. First, she tried to contact Bradford Capital's HR department to explain the situation. However, James Collins was absent, and the person who answered simply told her coldly, "A replacement has already been decided." "Please at least give me an opportunity to meet," Margaret persisted, but she only received the response, "This is a decision from upper management." Margaret, unwilling to give up, was about to head directly to the office with her resume when Jessica stopped her. "Margaret, you need to calm down and think of a different strategy," Jessica said, offering her a cup of coffee. "First, you should look for a new job. With your qualifications, you'll surely find another opportunity soon." "But..." Margaret was at a loss for words. She was devastated to lose the position she had spent years preparing for in such a manner. Think of Samantha, Jessica gently advised. She knows you're a strong mother. How would she feel if you fell apart now? Margaret exhaled deeply at Jessica's words. You're right. That afternoon, Margaret picked up Samantha from school, and they returned to their small apartment. She explained to her daughter simply, there's a small issue with Mommy's new job, so I'll be looking for something else. But Grandma. Samantha began, but Margaret gently interrupted her. It's complicated adult business. Don't worry about it. However, Samantha was perceptive. Did Grandma and Aunt Vanessa bully you, Mom? Margaret struggled to hold back tears at the question. Sometimes, even family members can't understand each other. But it's okay. We have our own path. That night, after Samantha had gone to bed, Margaret began searching for new job opportunities. While not as prestigious as Bradford Capital, several investment companies were looking for financial analysts. She decided to send out application materials immediately. A week passed, and Margaret received interview invitations from 2 companies. Meanwhile, there had been no contact from her mother Eleanor. Even when Samantha asked, "Can I call Grandma?" Margaret could only reply, "We need a little more time." One morning, as Margaret was preparing for an interview, her cell phone suddenly rang. The screen displayed Bradford Capital. She answered in surprise. "This is Margaret Wilson." "Ms. Wilson, this is Robert Blackwell, CEO of Bradford Capital." Margaret gasped. A direct call from the CEO. "Yes, how can I help you?" "A serious issue has arisen, and I'd like to speak with you directly. Could you come to our office this afternoon?" Though confused, Margaret replied, "Yes, of course. Thank you." And Mr. Blackwell hesitated for a moment. "Please ask your mother and Vanessa to come as well." After hanging up, Margaret couldn't understand what was happening. However, before contacting her mother and sister, she wanted to get some clues. She called Jessica to explain the situation and asked her to pick up Samantha from school. Then, she headed to her mother's house. When she arrived at Eleanor's house, it was surprisingly quiet. When she rang the doorbell, her mother eventually opened the door. Her face had lost its usual arrogance and looked somewhat anxious. "Maggie," Eleanor said, sounding surprised. "I believe you received a call from Bradford Capital's CEO," Margaret said calmly. "He wants to meet with the 3 of us." The blood drained from Eleanor's face. "From Robbie. What happened?" Margaret asked sharply. At this moment, Vanessa could be seen coming down the stairs. She too had lost her usual arrogance and looked pale. "Big sister," Vanessa began, but Margaret raised her hand to stop her. 3 p.m. this afternoon at Bradford Capital's office. The CEO wants to meet with all of us. If you know something, you'd better tell me now. Suddenly, her mother's cell phone rang loudly. Eleanor looked at the phone and lost even more color in her face. "It's from Robbie." Margaret stood still, watching her mother answer the call. "Yes, this is Eleanor," her mother's voice was trembling. Shouting could be heard from the other end of the phone. Even standing in the next room, Margaret could clearly hear the angry voice. "Eleanor, you asked for special hiring because we're friends, and you lied that your daughter had Margaret's background and achievements. Vanessa can't even handle basic spreadsheet operations and embarrassed us at this morning's client meeting. I want an explanation." Eleanor tried to make excuses, but the voice on the phone grew even louder. "Submitting 10 years of false credentials is practically a criminal act. Come to the office right now with both your daughters. I've contacted Margaret too. We need to get to the truth." When the call ended, a heavy silence fell over the room. Margaret was too shocked for words. Eleanor stood frozen, still clutching the phone. "You used my credentials. Margaret asked in a trembling voice. Eleanor didn't answer, but from the top of the stairs, Vanessa weakly said, "Mom said we should. She said since my background wasn't good enough, we should use Big Sister's 10 years of experience and qualifications. And you threw me under the bus." Tears welled up in Margaret's eyes. "Why? Why would you go so far to hurt me?" Eleanor finally raised her face. "I thought you were bound to fail. Having a child so young but refusing to give up on your career, you were supposed to stumble eventually. But you succeeded. Contrary to my expectations. I couldn't stand it." Eleanor's voice was barely audible. "I wanted to give Vanessa a chance. She has nothing." Margaret trembled with anger and sadness. "You've always looked down on me. Ever since Samantha was born, no, even before that. But this time, I can't forgive you. You stole my 10 years of hard work and threatened the livelihood of Samantha and me." "I'm sorry," Vanessa finally said. "I couldn't do the job at all. I completely failed at an important presentation this morning." "So that's how the truth came out," Margaret said calmly. "And it didn't even last a week." The three women faced each other in silence, as if all the family's long-standing distortions had surfaced. "Get in the car," Margaret quietly commanded. "Let's go to Bradford Capital. It's time to tell the whole truth." In the car, Eleanor said in a small voice, "I told Robert that Margaret was a single mother without flexible time, so Vanessa would be more suitable. He initially objected, but as a special favor to our friendship, he hired Vanessa." Margaret kept her eyes on the road and said nothing. Various emotions swirled inside her: anger, sadness, the pain of betrayal, and a strange sense of liberation. The reason why her mother had never acknowledged her all these years was now clear. The Bradford Capital high-rise came into view. Margaret took a deep breath. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I want to tell you one thing," she told her mother and sister. "From today, our relationship changes. I will never forgive anyone who hurt Samantha and me again." The three women entering the elevator looked as solemn as if heading to a final judgment. The conference room on the 45th floor of Bradford Capital was surrounded by large windows overlooking the Philadelphia skyline. On one side of the table sat CEO Robert Blackwell and several executives with stern expressions. Margaret, her mother Eleanor, and her sister Vanessa sat opposite them in a row. "Thank you for coming," Blackwell began in a cold voice. "We need to discuss a very serious matter today." The tension in the conference room was palpable. Margaret sat with her back straight, trying to maintain her composure. Eleanor looked older than her years, and Vanessa was shrinking in fear. "Let's start by confirming the facts." Blackwell reviewed the documents on the table. "Ms. Margaret Wilson, you were officially offered the position of Senior Financial Analyst at our company, correct?" "Yes, that's right," Margaret answered in a calm voice. "And your mother, Eleanor Wilson, contacted us to decline the offer without your knowledge. At the same time, she recommended your sister, Vanessa Wilson, as a replacement." "Yes," Margaret confirmed. Blackwell turned to Eleanor. "Eleanor, you and I have known each other for 30 years, but this matter goes beyond friendship. You submitted Margaret's background and achievements as Vanessa's resume. Is this true?" Eleanor took a glass of water with trembling hands, took a sip, and then said, "Robbie, Please answer the question," Blackwell said sternly. Eleanor sighed. "Yes, I did." At those words, the air in the conference room froze. "Why did you do such a thing?" "I wanted to give Vanessa a chance," Eleanor answered weakly. "She has talent, but no opportunities." "Talent?" Blackwell frowned. "Vanessa couldn't perform even the most basic financial analysis at this morning's client meeting. She embarrassed us in front of our key clients." Vanessa blushed and lowered her gaze. "Furthermore," Blackwell continued, our investigation revealed that Margaret's qualification certificates and performance reports had been altered to show Vanessa's name. This isn't just a recommendation issue, it potentially involves document forgery. Eleanor turned ashen. I didn't mean to. Let me show you the evidence, Blackwell signaled to the HR representative. The representative displayed several documents on the screen. They clearly showed Margaret's resume with only the name changed to Vanessa's. And what's even more problematic is this, Blackwell pointed to another document. An email found on Vanessa's computer. The screen displayed an email from Vanessa to Eleanor. Mom, using Big Sister's background, surely no one will notice. I'll learn the financial knowledge quickly, so it'll be fine. Thank you for this opportunity. Margaret was too shocked for words. She stared at her mother and sister. It became clear that they had deliberately tried to ruin her life, not just out of momentary jealousy or frustration. I didn't know, Vanessa weakly made excuses. Mom said Big Sister didn't really want this job. That's a lie. Margaret's suppressed anger finally exploded. You two have been trying to bring me down from the start. You stole the career I built desperately as a single mother and tried to ruin my life. Margaret, Blackwell gently placed his hand on her shoulder. You are not at fault. In fact, your abilities are genuine. He placed another document on the table. This is your original resume and your evaluation during the hiring process. You received the highest score among our candidates. That was purely based on your abilities and knowledge. Margaret was so moved that she could barely hold back tears. Our company does not tolerate such misconduct, Blackwell said in a stern voice. Eleanor, Vanessa, this situation would normally warrant legal action. Eleanor looked up. Robbie, for the sake of our long friendship. Please stop using friendship as a shield, Blackwell said, controlling his anger. You betrayed my trust. You caused damage to the company and treated a talented individual unfairly. After a moment of silence, Blackwell turned back to Margaret. Ms. Wilson, we would like to honor your original offer. Furthermore, to demonstrate our confidence in your abilities, we would like to welcome you as the leader of an important project. Margaret was surprised. Really? Of course, Blackwell smiled. Your capabilities are genuine. Considering the emotional distress you've suffered from this incident, we've prepared conditions beyond what was initially planned. He handed her a document. It detailed a higher salary than initially offered, flexible working hours, and access to childcare support programs. Discrimination based on being a single mother goes against our company policy, Blackwell said with a serious expression. Rather, we respect the fact that you've worked so hard and achieved so much under difficult circumstances. Margaret tried to express her gratitude but was too overwhelmed to speak. She could only nod deeply. Now, regarding Eleanor and Vanessa, Blackwell returned to his stern expression. We will not take legal action, but this incident will be reported to our business partners and related industries. Eleanor, the credibility you've built will be lost. Eleanor slumped her shoulders, looking defeated. Vanessa said through tears, I'm truly sorry. I was jealous. I couldn't stand seeing Big Sister succeed. Margaret finally regained her composure and stood up. I understand, Mr. Blackwell. Thank you for your kindness. Then she turned to her mother and sister. I will never be used again. Our relationship ends today. She continued in a trembling voice, for Samantha's sake, and for my own, I cannot continue such a relationship. What I want to teach my daughter is that you can't call someone family just because of blood ties without love or respect. Don't come back into my life. Eleanor gasped in shock. Maggie, you can't. My name is Margaret, she said calmly. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. I'll start working next week. Margaret held her head high as she left the conference room. As she entered the elevator, she felt as if a burden she had carried for years was lifting from her shoulders. Wilson team, is the proposal ready? In a Bradford Capital conference room, Margaret smiled as she addressed her staff. A year had passed, and she had been promoted to Deputy Director of the Financial Analysis Division. Her team had become known as the most successful group in the company. Yes, everything is ready, a young analyst answered confidently. Excellent, Margaret nodded with satisfaction. Then let's begin the presentation. The presentation was a huge success. The client was impressed with her analytical skills and persuasiveness, leading to a new major contract. When Margaret returned to her office after the meeting, an envelope was placed on her desk. Her heart rate increased at the familiar handwriting. It was a letter from Eleanor. Margaret took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Dear Margaret. Only after losing everything did I truly understand the weight of what I had done. From the bottom of my heart, I apologize for hurting you and Samantha. I won't make excuses. I was wrong. I hear about your success. I'm proud of you. Truly. You may not believe me now, but Vanessa has changed too. She went back to learning accounting basics and has started working at a small company. She also wants to apologize to you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just hope that someday we can talk as family again. With love. Mother. Margaret finished reading the letter and gazed out the window. Philadelphia was beginning to be tinged with twilight. Various emotions swirled in her heart, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. That evening, Margaret and Samantha were enjoying dinner in their new apartment. Through the large living room window, the city's night view was visible. Her daughter was happily talking about school, and Margaret listened with satisfaction. Hey Mom, it's been a year, Samantha suddenly said. Aren't you going to see Grandma and Aunt Vanessa? Margaret looked into her daughter's intelligent eyes. I received a letter from Grandma. What did it say? Words of apology, Margaret quietly answered. Samantha asked carefully, choosing her words, are you going to forgive them? Margaret put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. Time can heal some things. It won't ever be exactly the same, but, someday, we might rebuild a relationship in a limited way. But for now, let's cherish our own happiness, Margaret smiled. We're the strong Wilson family. The two of us make a wonderful family on our own. Samantha hugged her mother tightly. Mom, you're the strongest mom in the world. Outside the window, stars were beginning to shine. Margaret took a deep breath. Life is unpredictable and sometimes cruel, but if you continue to believe in your own worth, a path will surely open. And she understood from the bottom of her heart that true family isn't necessarily defined by blood ties, but by relationships built on mutual respect and support.